Okay, call to order, folks. Let's get started. So I'm going to move for us to call to order. I don't need a seconder or anything like that. I'm just calling to order, folks. I call the meeting to order at 3:16 p.m. Now we're going to watch a video of a territory acknowledgement from Dr. Skip Dick from the First People's House. I'm going to press play on this video. The audio is a little bit quiet, but just bear with me. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear it when it starts to play.
Good day, my friends. I want to make sure that you understand that this is not about me. This is about you, the students. We want to make sure that you're carrying yourself with good feelings, and I want to make sure that you understand that our Lekwungen people have 9 to 12 different communities in our territory in the Victoria area. We're called Coast Salish, but on the Vancouver Island we have on the west coast the Nuu-chah-nulth people, the folks up in the north, the Kwakwa people, and they all operate the same way with respect to our territories, our lands. There's no such a thing as gray area. They just know who their families are, and they never tell one family what to do. They all encourage you. So what I'm saying is that you understand that I'm not telling you what to do. I'm encouraging you to understand that you don't have to give up your values just to come to school or come to more learning. And I wanted to say to you that for our Lekwungen territory, welcome to our territory.
Thanks for tuning in and listening to that, folks. Moving on to the approval of the chair. So I'm actually not going to be chairing this meeting. Well, it depends on us. Can I please have a mover? So I need somebody to just say, I move in 1 second here. We're going to have a lovely individual named James Kokola that's going to hopefully chair our meeting today. He was actually in my position in 2010, about 10 years ago, and has been chairing AGMs for a really long time. So could I please have somebody move to approve the chair? And it would be, if folks could actually just unmute and say, I move, or someone, that would be great for the person who's taking minutes.
I move.
Thank you, Roxanne. And I need a seconder as well. Can someone just pop up and say, I second?
I second.
Thank you, Beth. Now I'm going to send a poll out. That's going to be selecting the chair, and I'm going to launch the poll, and then I'm going to give you folks some time to vote on that one. So the poll is up for asking if you folks approve James Kokola as the chair for our meeting today. I'll just give folks a minute or two to vote.
May I ask who James Kokola is?
Yeah, absolutely. James was the Director of Outreach and University Relations for the UVSS, my position in 2010. And he is really proficient in democratic rules of order and Robert's rules and chairing meetings. So he's been actually chairing AGMs for years. Hold on, folks. I just gotta send a message here. All right. James, because you have done this before, when do I end the poll? Sorry, might not be a great question.
I usually give around a minute for people to vote, and then you end the poll.
Okay.
So I think you can probably end it about now.
All right, it's been a minute. Ending the poll. Results were yes. Thanks, folks, for voting James in his chair. And I'm going to stop sharing the poll. And James, I guess you take it away. Let me know when you want me to switch the slide.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody. As was said, my name is James Kokola. I was previously in Marin's role about 10 years ago. I've been coming back every once in a while to help facilitate the AGMs for the UVSS. I'm also a member of the National Association of Parliamentarians. So before we begin, I'm going to go over some brief outline of the rules so everybody understands how this meeting is going to operate. So there are a couple of documents that we use to help us determine the rules for these meetings. The first is the Constitution and bylaws for the organization and any other governing policies. The other one is the Democratic Rules of Order, which is outlined as the rules of order you use in your Constitution. So for this meeting, your quorum is established at 0.6% of your membership, which is 117 people. If we don't have 117 people, which it looks like we'll have much more, as long as you have more than 20, there's a smaller agenda we can go through. I'm not here to participate in the debate in any way. I'm here to simply help facilitate the meeting itself. So Democratic Rules of Order, for those who've never used it before, are a simplified version of a lot of different types of parliamentary rules. Now, you don't need to know all of the rules. If at any time you're lost, you can let me know by putting the question in the chat to me directly or typing an X, and I'll call on you when we get to you in the speakers list. So as we go through the agenda, I will ask for motions. So it would be a motion to adopt the agenda, a motion to accept the minutes. Each motion will need a mover and a seconder. Everybody has a right to speak on them once. As we go through motions, if it looks like it's very one-sided, so there's 10 people in a row saying all speak in favor of something, what I'll probably do is I'll ask if there are people who have an alternative view, if there's somebody who's opposed, just so we have an actual flow of debate. If it keeps going that there's a lot of people on one side and nobody opposed, I'll do something called test the house. So we see if we want to go to a vote or not. So we're not just lining up with 20 people all saying the same thing. Some important motions for you folks to know as we go into this. If we get to a resolution, you have the opportunity as members to amend that resolution. There are some limits on what you can do in terms of amendments. So if you want to do that, we can go through the structure for that. But basically what you do is you put an X in the chat. I would call on you. You would state the resolution that you want to amend. You say, I want to amend it to be this thing, this words. You would have a seconder, and then I would allow you to explain your amendment. And then we'd go through, have debate on that amendment, and then have a vote. There's also a procedure called postponement or referral. So if you think a motion that's on the floor before this body needs to be dealt with at a different time or by a committee, you can postpone the motion or ask committee to review it. You would do this again by putting an X in the chat. I'd call on you. You'd state what you want to do. You'd postpone it to indefinitely or future time, or you'd refer it to a specific committee. It would be seconded, debated, and then we'd move on. If at any point folks feel like we've had enough debate, you can get on the speakers list and say you want to vote now, and that's another form of term called calling the question, and it requires a vote. So we move that as motion, second it, and then we go straight to deciding if we want to move on or not. Now, importantly, if at any point I have messed up in any way or I've skipped the rules, I encourage folks to bring that to my attention by writing in the chat to me directly, point of order. Once you do that, I'll call on you. If there's someone that's speaking, I'll interrupt that speaker to answer your point. If I rule on your point of order and you disagree with me still, you can ask for this body to vote on your point of order. That's so you can overturn my decision if you'd like. One other special note is you do have a special resolution on the agenda. Special resolutions require 2/3 to pass. So all other motions are simply 50% plus 1. Like I said, if at any point you're unsure about the actual rules, please put a message in the chat and I will try to get to you. I will be asking people to, if you want to speak on something, make sure you put an X in the chat. I won't be answering questions from the chat directly unless there's a particular reason for that. All right, I think we can go to the next slide here. So the first thing on our docket here is to adopt the agenda. So there is, if you want to see the detailed agenda, you go to uvss.ca/AGM. So we have one special resolution. There's also 2 financial resolutions at the end. So I'm going to ask for a mover and then a seconder, and then we'll open it up to any debate if we need. So if you'd like to move that motion, please write to me in the chat or unmute and say move. I'd like to move the motion.
I like to move the motion.
And just say your name for the record for me.
Roxanne.
Thanks. Would anybody like to second the motion?
I second the motion.
Okay, and just say your name for us.
Effie.
Thank you. All right, I do have a speaker. Abdul, would you like to speak to this resolution?
Yes, I would like to amend the agenda if that is possible. I would like to add a motion onto it.
Okay, what is the motion you'd like to move?
I will copy and paste a link to you in the chat if that is okay.
Sure.
There we go.
Just one moment, please. So this is a resolution to amend the bylaws of the UVSS. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to have to rule this motion out of order. The rationale for this is that motions to amend the bylaws are special resolutions, and under the Societies Act require a specific amount of notice. What I would suggest is this would be something you could submit for the next.
I
Sorry,
actually believe that I can bring this up to a vote by appealing the chair's decision.
You can, if you'd like to appeal my decision, you can. I will explain my rationale and then we go to a vote.
I would like to appeal the chair's decision then.
Okay. My rationale for this decision is under the Societies Act, you need to give proper notice. And under the bylaws of the society, you need to give proper notice. If you were to overturn my decision and then adopt these bylaws, it would actually not be adopted by the Societies Act. It would be, if you actually want this to happen and occur in a way that's fair, you need to submit it to the proper process through the process laid on the bylaws, which is either to gather the required number of signatures to have this added to the AGM or ask the board of directors to add this to AGM. So I submit my rationale and then we'll go to the vote. So Maren, do we have a poll we can add?
Yeah, I have a poll that I created that was just it says untitled question, but the poll says yes or no.
Perfect. So you're going to be voting on whether or not you want to uphold my decision or not. So if you're in favor of upholding my decision, you'd vote yes. If you're opposed, you'd vote no. So I will ask that that goes up and stays up for 1 minute. So I had a question if we can clarify this vote while the people are voting. If you agree with my rationale that the motion that amends the bylaws is out of order, you'd vote yes. If you disagree, you would vote no. So we'll be up for another 20 seconds. All right, and we'll end the poll here and we'll share the results. Okay, so my decision was overturned. So the motion has been moved and I will read out the motion and then it'll need to be seconded. Actually, so I'm only gonna read out the be it resolved clause when we get to the actual resolution on the agenda. If we get there, then we'll read the whereas clauses. So be it resolved, the bylaws be amended as follows. Article 5.1, composition of the board. And it's changing A6 from 11 to 2 directors at large. And then it's adding in to 5.1E, the following directors elected by membership from their respective faculties, and then list Director of Business and Business Student Relations, Education Student Relations, Engineering Computer Science Student Relations, Director of Fine Arts Student Relations, Director of Human and Social Development Student Relations, Director of Humanities Student Relations, Director of Law Student Relations, Director of Science Student Relations, and Director of Social Science Student Relations. And then finally 5.2, so it's more than there. Term of the office of members of the board of directors, and then adds in faculty directors, and then adds in 6.5 faculty of directors to the board of directors. Election of faculty directors to the board of directors. Faculty directors shall be elected by members of the student society that are officially declared in the faculty that director will be representing. And there's 6.6E. Faculty director candidates must be officially declared in the faculty they seek to represent. 8.6 director at large. And then 8.9 faculty directors. The faculty director shall actually assist the board in the performance of its duties. B, scrutinize the activities of the lead directors. C, participate on at least 2 committees of the student society. And D, represent the students and the faculty to the best of their abilities. So that motion has been moved. I'd ask for a seconder.
I second.
Okay. So this is simply a motion now to add this to the agenda. So I have Q who would like to speak. And the comments on this must be simply limited to the ability to or adding this to the agenda, yes or no.
My question is that for accessibility reasons, can we see it? Can we read it? I can't process it just from hearing it.
Yeah, that's very fair. I will put the copy, I hope it's okay, Abdul, that I'm putting the copy into the chat for everybody to see.
I believe it's a view only link. I think that's fine.
Okay. Abdul, did you want to speak to adding this to the agenda?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
I would like to begin by saying that I used to be a director on the board of directors at the UVSS last year. This motion I'm presenting was written with help from Pierre-Paul Angelblazer and Jonathan Granier. Sorry if I said that name wrong, who were both previously in Marin's position as directors of Outreach and University Relations. It is a heavily researched and very good piece of policy that I think brings the UVSS to the levels of democracy of other student unions. I think it's very important for us to have this discussion, and seeing what students want is what students want is always very, very important. Thank you.
Okay. I am not seeing anybody else who would like to speak to this motion. If you want to speak to adding this to the agenda, you would put an X in the chat to me. Okay. Marin, go ahead.
Thanks, James. I just want to get some clarification as to what you were saying before. I'm not going to speak for or against at this point, but because this motion was added to the agenda or is proposed to be added to the agenda so late, does it have the ability to be even passed according to the Societies Act?
So I believe it is Section 81 of the Societies Act, which states that you have to give proper notice to special resolutions. This has not been done in this case. This body can vote on that resolution. It'll be up to the Registrar of Societies to accept or not accept the resolution. Abdul, you have raised a point of order. Go ahead.
Does that apply to motions from the membership?
Yes, it applies to any special resolution. Ethan. Ethan, are you there? Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. And Maren, did you have anything else to say?
I do. Yeah, I just want to provide a little bit of context for folks. This motion was brought up to the board to potentially bring, I believe it was to the AGM last year. And I just want to post the minutes in the chat that it was actually defeated by the board. I just wanted to give everybody a bit of historical context. Those are the minutes when that motion was brought up last year and it was defeated.
Okay. I don't see anybody else on the speakers list, so I'm going to ask for a vote on adding this to the agenda. And for context, folks, I'm going to suggest that it goes after the other special resolution. So we'll go in section 6, would be the second one. Dip, do you have anything to say before we go to the vote?
Yeah, would this also be a place to motivate against adding?
If you'd like to motivate against, you can, but I need to caution that this is about just adding or not adding to the agenda. We need to keep it simply into that space.
Okay. I would just like to say that, I mean, apart from the content, I would not be comfortable just voting on it, having seen this for a very short amount of time, apart from last year when it was brought up to the board. And this can potentially have a lot of legal consequences for the society that we don't unforeseen, which means we will be spending on legal funds for quite some time, which is obviously detrimental to the finances and the overall operations of the society. Thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna ask for the vote to go up now. So in this vote, if you want to add this to the agenda, you will vote yes. If you do not want to add this to the agenda, you vote no. Yes to add this. All right, people have asked me to type out the question, so I will do that. Okay, if the motion can go up, please, that would be great. Let's be up for 1 minute. Another 5 seconds. Okay, so that I'll stop the poll there. So that did pass, so it'll be added as the second special resolution on the agenda. And I saw that some people didn't maybe see that, but hopefully it'll show up the next one. Okay. Let's move to the next slide, please. Keep going. Adoption of the minutes. So the minutes are available at uvss.ca/AGM. I would encourage folks to go check them out. They were provided in advance with the link. If I can get a mover and a seconder for the minutes, if you can unmute and say I move the minutes, that would be great, and state your name.
Hey, James, it's Kalen. I'll move those minutes.
Thanks, Kalen. Is there a seconder?
I second.
And just state your name for me.
Isla.
Thanks, Alan. Okay. Is there any discussion on the minutes? If you'd like to discuss the minutes, please press X. I also note there were a couple of people who didn't see the option to vote. Hopefully it'll come up this time when we get to the vote. Okay, I'm seeing nobody who wants to speak, so I'll ask for the vote to go up. So if you want to adopt the minutes as presented, you're going to vote yes. If you do not want to adopt the minutes, you're going to vote no. Okay, 10 more seconds. And I'll just end the poll. So that passes. So the minutes have been adopted. And we can go to the next slide. Hey, prize time. All right.
Woohoo! Prize time. Now we are giving away 2 passes to Wild Play, and we've decided that, oops, no. We're gonna give away both of the passes at once because you don't want to go to Wild Play and then make your friend pay. So that doesn't really make sense if you get to go free and your friend doesn't. So Steph, please do your magic and let me know what lucky individual is going to win. Just 1 sec. Just 1 minute. Steph just has to verify and make sure that this lovely person is an undergraduate student. It'll take like 5 seconds, but the winner's been selected. Anxiously waiting. Anxiously waiting. All right, drum roll. The winner of 2 passes to Wild Play is James Park. James, are you here? Give me a little shout if you are. You can send me a message or just say, hey, I'm here. James Park. If James Park's not here, then we're gonna have to redraw. So James, please give me a shout.
I see them on the participants list.
You see them?
I see them there, but are they actually there?
James. Okay, James messaged me. James is here. Okay, lovely. Congratulations, James. Oh, they're in class, so they can't talk. Thanks for being here, James. All right. This is a slide that I made to make sure that we had quorum at this point because we're going to be talking about our main motions. However, we definitely do. So thank you folks for being here.
Okay, so just a reminder, folks, I can't, it's difficult for me to manage both the speakers list and any questions that come in. So if you can, please put your name. If you need, I need to ask a question to me, please put an X. I'd prefer to have you say it out loud so that I don't have to try to do too many things at once. So this is our first motion. It is a special resolution requiring a 2/3 majority. And so I'm going to read the be it resolved, the operative clauses. I'm not going to read all of the whereas clauses. I'll leave it to you folks to read all those. But it is be it resolved that bylaw 4.7 and 4.8 are amended as follows. C, quorum for the referendum shall be, and adds in 5% and strikes out 15% of the voting membership. 4.8, quorum for general meetings and strikes out referenda. Is there another page to this? No, okay. So this one did come from the board. So I've been told that Maren Dodds would like to be the mover on this one. Is there somebody who would like to second the motion? You can unmute and say you'd like to second. And please say your first and last name.
I'll second. My name is Rowan Huffrose.
Thank you. So the mover of the motion has the right to speak first. So I'll pass it over to Maren Dodds.
Thanks, James. Hi, folks. I've spoken a lot already, but I never have actually introduced myself. My name is Maren. My pronouns are she and her. I'm the Director of Outreach and University Relations for the UVSS. Okay. To begin, I just want to thank everybody for being here today and taking time out of your busy schedules to engage with UVSS. I know it's midterm season. Some folks are skipping class right now. I have midterms. We all have midterms. It's full on. And I also want to extend my appreciation for all of the discussion that's been happening this week and the last week and a half regarding the motion that's on the table today. Student politics is all about debate and discussion and finding the best solutions to issues that we all face as students. That's our job as elected representatives on the board. And I'm just super pleased to see all of you folks here today. So following that, I actually want to bypass my motivation for this motion. And as the mover, I move to postpone it indefinitely. And according to democratic rules of order, like the rules by which UVSS meetings are governed, postponing a motion indefinitely, if seconded and passed, it takes it off the agenda today. So we won't vote on the actual motion, and James will explain that further. But it can be brought up at another general meeting if folks decide to do so. So right now I'm gonna motion to postpone. James.
So there's a motion to postpone. So who was at the second? Can you say first and last name?
Yep, Liam Sherman.
Liam Sherman, thank you. So there's been a motion to postpone. And so as was explained, motion to postpone would take this off of the agenda. So there would not be a direct vote on this resolution if this passes. So there were a couple people who had sent an X before. I noted, Abdul, you had sent an X before, but Kaylin just put an X in. So Kaylin put an X in. Abdul, if you'd like to speak on this motion to postpone, please put another X in. So Kaylin, go ahead.
Hey, this seems like a pretty good idea to me. I'm just wondering why we're postponing it when, like, it was, I'm going to guess, your board who brought this forward.
Maren, did you want to respond to that direct question to you?
I would like to respond. I actually have a quite a long explanation about the reasoning behind everything. And I was going to save it until a bit later, but would it make sense to say that reasoning now and hopefully address some of the potential questions in the chat?
If you think it would be helpful for people who need the information to make the vote, I would suggest that you give that information.
Okay, I'm gonna give, I'll give my spiel. I'll give all the information now. It's a little long, so bear with me, but please, yeah, listen. So we believe that the idea of reducing quorum for referenda is worthy of consideration, and we'll continue to engage with students on it so that we can make an informed decision about this together later in the future. However, after hearing feedback from students with hesitations about this motion and coming to conclusions ourselves as a board, we believe that postponing this motion is the right decision. It's it's not the right time to rush into a vote on this motion, as it seems like there's some work that we have to do as the UVSS board members to inform students about why we are considering this, what's at stake, and why it could be worth considering in the future. And I'm just going to do a bit of that right now. So first and foremost, the UVSS is your student society, all 320 of you, or however you're all here. It's yours. You're a part of it. You are a member of the student union, just the same as I am. So as the elected board, we want to ensure that the UVSS remains able to most effectively serve students. And as the needs and desires of students may change over time, we want the UVSS to be able to remain responsive and meet these needs. So we believe that reducing quorum for referenda from 15%, that threshold, will allow future UVSS boards to be able to do this effectively, and it can be put on future agendas if folks decide to do so. So on that note, reducing quorum for referenda is an issue that was presented to us by previous student leaders at the UVSS over the last few years. The idea of changing quorum for referenda has been around actually for a really long time at the UVSS. A 15% quorum was actually only introduced at a general meeting, same as this, within the past decade in 2014. And there have been previous considerations since then to reduce it. And previous to 2014, quorum was actually at 5% at what the motion is. So furthermore, we want to ensure that the UVSS also remains in line with current best practices at other campuses. So many other universities and colleges have established a quorum for referenda that is much lower than UVSS's quorum. In many instances, it's actually like a third of our current requirement. I'll give you a couple examples you can see on the motion there, but give you a couple more. VIU's quorum for referenda is 5%. Same with Camosun, Simon Fraser University, Capilano, and Thompson Rivers University. It's all at 5%. UBC's quorum for referenda is 8%. And then back east at the University of Toronto, their quorum for referenda is 5% as well on most matters, and then 7.5% on questions of student fees. All much lower than our quorum, which is at 15. So you can see that our proposal to reduce quorum is not out of line with current campus standards, and there are several reasons why we believe that this would and could benefit students at UVic. The concerns that we've heard that some of you are raising regarding democratic processes and meaningful representation are really important, and we hear this concern. We carefully balance this with previously mentioned considerations, and we're grappling with some questions regarding this. And these questions include, how do we make sure that our services for students are relevant and delivered in a timely manner? And how do we adhere to democratic ideals while also acknowledging the fact that decision-making processes can at times be directly in conflict with the UVSS's ability to student needs as they emerge? And this may be an increasingly important consideration during these unprecedented times that we're living in. I'm sorry for being corny. The mission of the UVSS is to be a leader in providing high quality, accessible services, advocacy, and events that enhance the student experience, and to build a campus community that embodies these values. We want to continue to engage students in the formation of that work as we do it. Two of our core values as a student society are good governance and service. We take our responsibility to ensure the long-term stability and health of the UVSS very seriously. To us, this means ensuring participatory democracy, transparent decision-making, being prudent and judicious with your student fees, and being accountable for our actions. At the same time, service to students is why we exist. The services that we provide are high quality, student-centered and driven, and provide essential support to many students at UVic. We provide essential services to all members of the UVSS, which I'm sure most of you already know about, the Extended Health and Dental Plan, our UPass, or the Bus Pass, and then our Peer Support Center and the Food Bank and Free Store, which are downstairs in the sub. Additionally, under the UVSS umbrella are advocacy groups like the Students of Color Collective, UVic Pride, the Gender Empowerment Center, the Society for Students with a Disability, and the Native Students Union. Additionally, we support the University of Victoria Sustainability Project. All of those were mentioned before in the meeting. And key services like the Anti-Violence Project, our on-campus sexual assault center, and the campus community garden. All of these offices are located in the Student Union building. These services are rooted in our deeply held belief that everyone deserves access to education and to have a positive and meaningful experience while they are a student at UVic. Just a little bit more, folks. Thanks for keeping with me. The UVSS is a nonprofit. So student fees that we all pay fund these vital services. Any changes to your student fees need to go to a referendum of the UVSS membership, and rightly so. Students should have a say in these matters, of course. However, the current quorum threshold also meant that we had a hard time discontinuing the collection of a $3 per term fee all of last year for a service that no longer existed, the PERG. Because we weren't able to meet quorum all of last year, we still had to charge students that extra $3 per term. We want to be responsive to the current realities, and we want to ensure to continue to make progress on important initiatives. And yes, sometimes that does mean looking into marginally increasing student fees so that we can better serve students. Over the past 5 years, the referendum questions that asked to raise student fees only asked to raise them on average $1.50 each, actually a bit less, $1.46, but I rounded up, for full-time students and even less for part-time students. Over the pandemic, the UVSS board ran 3 referendums, and in each of them, we hoped to secure more funding to the Students of Color Collective, for open educational resources to increase the number of free and accessible learning tools, aka free textbooks, and to support sustainability initiatives in the sub. And those that did vote in those referendums that we were proposing those initiatives, a majority of those questions actually passed. Students do want to see those changes. However, we were unable to implement them. Those questions failed because we weren't able to reach quorum. As you can see, reducing the quorum percentage on referendums is really complex. It's a really complex question that we may revisit in the future. And I invite you to really just consider and dig into what I'm sharing with you today. On behalf of the UVSS, thank you so much for just giving us the opportunity to listen to you folks and being here today and for engaging with us on this topic. Today, I'm bypassing this motion and moving to postpone it indefinitely. This decision was guided by our values of good governance and service, while also taking into consideration feedback from students. Again, this is incredibly complex, and I hope that I provided a bit more clarity for folks regarding the reasons why we brought this motion to the table initially and why I'm motioning to postpone it. If folks have more questions, please send me an email at outreach@uvss.ca. When I'm done, I can put it in the chat. I would love to have a conversation about all of this, as well as have a conversation about it now. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
So just for folks, I've received a couple questions about the process here. So we are on a motion to postpone. So if we go to a vote on the motion to postpone indefinitely and it passes, that means that the motion essentially is removed from the agenda. It could be considered at a later agenda if it is brought back by the board or by a number of students. If the motion to postpone fails, then we will go back to the main motion, which is the one on the screen right now, and we'll have another debate and a vote on that motion. And then that motion will be voted yes or no. So I've got 8 people on the list here. So I'm going to go through them. So I'm going to go to Abdul first.
Hi, I just wanted to ask if there is any difference between failing the motion and failing the actual motion or postponing it. Does that, if we fail it, does it mean that they can, that the board of directors can't bring this up again, or does it mean basically the same thing?
So if you, let's see if that's right. So if the motion to postpone passes, it needs a 50% to pass, 50% plus 1, then it is removed from the agenda. If it fails, we go back to the main motion and it requires 2/3 to pass. So if it doesn't get the 2/3, it is removed from the agenda. The outcome, though, is the exact same. At the next meeting or next general meeting, the board could put it back on the agenda. There's nothing preventing them from doing that in either option. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I've got Kathleen next.
Hi, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Kathleen. Thank you.
Okay, so I just had some comments on the motion to postpone this motion indefinitely. So I'm a member of the board. I'm a director at large, and I wanted to comment here because I haven't been given the opportunity to do that on the board. And actually, I'm not sure who on the board was part of the decision to decide to postpone this motion, but it wasn't the whole board. There were no emails sent to the board about this. I'm also on the policy committee, so I was involved in the creation of, and I'm on member outreach, so I was involved in the creation of the concept of this motion and the writing of it, and then the approval of it at the committee level and at the board level. So I feel like my time as a volunteer is being wasted if this is going to be withdrawn after it was democratically decided to be put forward for the AGM. I question who is putting pressure on the executive or whoever decided to move to postpone this, but I don't think it's a very democratic process. Yeah, and considering a lot of the points that Marin just made about reasons to postpone it are actually arguments to have it, because if we pass this motion, then referenda would be easier to pass also between AGMs, which would allow us to be more responsive. But also, I'm not advocating for the passing of this motion. I'm merely advocating for the democratic process to have this motion and for the board to not be misrepresented, don't say that this is being brought forward on behalf of the UVSS when it's not, and I'm not sure who else is on board with it because, as I said, we haven't had a chance to discuss. So thank you.
Okay. Alexander Buss.
Hi, thanks, James. Mine's actually similar to what Kathleen was saying. I think it's just really important to have the vote be on record. I think postponing is kind of sweeping it under the rug after noticing quite a movement on social media against the motion. It feels as though this might be a classical political ploy of postponing and hiding a motion just to be able to bring it back at a more convenient time. And I think that if you're talking about transparency and accountability, there's not much of a better way than to have a vote and to get feedback on a motion rather than just trying to hide it away. And I guess my other comment would be more towards the motion itself, so I'll just hold off on that. Thanks.
Okay. Sam Morrow.
Hi. I just wanted to speak on this and say I can see what the UVSS is trying to do here in actually listening to what social media says and listening to feedback from students. And I personally think that that is a fantastic thing. As a representative body, it is incumbent upon the UVSS to actually respond to that which is said by the student body, and I appreciate their efforts here. However, I do completely agree with Alexander here in that I think it's pretty important that this is on the record that that this motion was passed and considered, and that if people voted down, if it was voted down, and that it's actually given this opportunity. Because when we postpone it, that it's when we withdraw the motion, because even though these effectively have the same, officially in parliamentary procedure, these have the exact same thing. You know, it just means that it wasn't passed, but unofficially, these convey separate things. This is it means that either this was voted on and struck down democratically, or it means that it was postponed for a later date. I mean, it's even being worded as being postponed rather than withdrawing the motion, which is really what's happening here. So when we postpone this, if we vote on this, we're making more of a statement on what we actually think as students for this motion. And I think that it's very, very clear what the students want related to this. And that I think that should also be considered for later on in future AGMs when this may or may not be brought up again. That the last time that at least this time that it was brought up, it brought major outrage from the student body. So I personally do not agree with postponing the resolution. I think that the message is loud and clear, and that we should be sending this message to the representative body.
Next on the list, I have Joshua Machado. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce the name right.
No, that's fine. So I just wanted to say that many of the people here today are for the motion here specifically, and we've spent over an hour and a half talking about different things, playing Kahoot games, and kind of wasting everyone's time for this meeting that I think is just poorly scheduled with people on co-op work terms, any just part-time jobs or anything like that. And just postponing this motion is just a huge waste of our time, kind of like a slap in the face. I believe the students are ready to vote, and it'd be beneficial for the UVSS to see how the students feel about this motion.
Okay, I have Helen. Did you want to say your question out loud? Helen Dunn? Okay, Helen said fine. And I had Liam, I didn't write Liam Sherman. Liam, are you there?
Right. Hello.
Hi, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was thinking on that, I guess considering the points that have been brought up, is it possible to move to postpone to the SAGM in February to allow students more time to deliberate on the matter, as with social media and stuff that only came out maybe the last like 5 days ago type thing, and nobody really had time to plan for this.
So you could, right now we're in a motion to postpone indefinitely. If you wanted to postpone it to a specific time, you would vote down this motion to postpone indefinitely, and then you could then move another motion to postpone to a specific time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. And Q, and then I have Marcus, and then Joshua. I'll have Grace go first, and I'll let you respond if you need to. So Q, go ahead.
Thanks. I was just gonna say, it's in the democratic rules of order, I believe, to use the term motion to postpone, or like the words postpone, but it was just our, like, Marin's way of making sure that she wasn't just withdrawing the motion and not letting folks have the ability to speak on it. I know that the end result is similar, but just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. Marcus?
I just found that it's actually finding the time to, like, when my schedule overlaps with these meetings is very difficult. And I actually had a midterm for the first hour of this meeting. And I really want to be able to be here to vote on this, and postponing it just really hurts. Yeah, sorry, I don't think I phrased it all that well, but I hope you get my idea.
Thanks, Marcus.
It's just very hard for me to actually be able to engage in the democratic process here, and having it postponed just denies me that ability.
Okay. Grace?
I have just 2 points, which would be that the timing of this Zoom meeting was quite unfortunate. A lot of people may have had labs or tutorials, which would have prevented them from joining the Zoom, given that Zoom will only allow you to be in one meeting at a time. Although a lot of people have spent a lot of time here today waiting to vote on this matter, a lot of people also were not able to be a part of this process. And to give them a chance to participate would be the best course of action, I think, and should definitely be considered when planned meetings in the future. And then also, a lot of students were not on campus in the last year. Things were very different. People may not know that these processes exist and how to participate in them. I don't think a lot of work was done to notify the student body that this is happening and that this motion was coming up. So postponing it to the future would allow more people to be aware and to participate in the process. Thank you.
So just to remind folks about what we're discussing, because a couple of people have asked me questions. So this is a motion to postpone indefinitely, which means that there's no set time where it would come back. It would essentially be the same as defeating the motion. And if the board or a sufficient number of students wanted to add it to a future AGM, they could. So that's the process that we're voting on. Josh, and then I have one other person on the speakers list.
I just wanted to say that in response to some of the people saying there needs to be more time to prepare this motion or responses to this motion being brought up, and that's kind of some of the reasoning to postponing it. As a student in the student body, I have my faith that this union is here to represent me and is going to prepare and be ready for these motions, and bringing up a motion and then just being like, oh, we need more time. And after I've been here for over an hour and a half, closing it on 2 hours, I just want to see this motion happen and want to kind of get this over with. So yeah.
Okay. And then, sorry, Ariel.
Yeah, hi everyone. I just want to say I'm so sorry that the timing didn't work. It's really tough to find a time that works for 22,000 undergraduate students. So I hear you. I'm not sure if, anyways, any other timing would have worked better. I also just want to offer the fact that postponing the motion doesn't mean that we're not going to engage in this. It would just allow us more time to research and understand all the different points of view that we might not have considered before. So when we vote on it, we have better and more information. I hear that that's not a popular opinion though. So yeah, thanks for coming.
Okay, last person, Cece, I believe you want to call the question, is that correct?
Yeah, I'd like to call a question.
Perfect. All right. So there's nobody else on the speakers list. So now that it's been called, I will shut down the speakers list and we will go to a vote. So this is a motion to postpone. And so that means if you would like to postpone this motion indefinitely, which we take it off the agenda, you're going to vote yes. If you do not want to postpone indefinitely, oh, sorry, you're right. I did make a mistake here. Under democratic rules of order, the person who motivated gets to have the last word. So Maren, you may have the last word.
Thanks, James. I just want to echo Marielle and say thank you to everyone who's offering their opinions. They're all really valuable, and I'm taking notes. And this is why we're here. This is why we do this work. And this is yeah, all of your responses are really appreciated, and I really thank you for that. I wanted to just say that we because I'm the mover of the motion, I have mover's privilege, but I did speak about this with all the other lead directors as well as our executive committee, and a lot of the reasoning behind this was what I agree with a lot of your reasoning with why that you were uncomfortable with having this motion be, if it was passed at this meeting. And so I didn't feel comfortable motivating for this motion when I didn't necessarily agree with the motion, with what the motion was saying at this point in time. So that's why I'm motioning to postpone. Either way,
You advertised it though.
Sorry, you may not interrupt another speaker when they have the floor.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Opinions changed really quickly when the last few days, when students were available or understanding that this was the motion at the AGM. We didn't receive too much feedback when we were engaging with this as just a board of directors. But when it was opened up and the agenda was available, our eyes were opened, if that makes sense. I don't know how to say that in any better way. So whether folks vote to have the motion postponed or vote on just the motion itself, the end result will be the same either way. But I wanted to make sure that we did this in a good way, and I had the ability to share all of our thoughts on it. So the motion to postpone in no way is trying to get out of the question or dodge things. It's the democratic way that I had the ability to explain everything that I was feeling and how we were feeling as an executive team. Either way, I'm obviously the vote will go however it will go. It's up to you folks, it's up to students. Thanks for hearing me out.
Okay, so we're going to open up the poll. It'll be there for 1 minute. So if you want to postpone this motion indefinitely, which means that the motion will be removed from the agenda, you're going to vote yes. If you want to have a final, or if you want to go back to the main motion and vote to adopt it or not adopt it with the bylaws, you're going to vote no. Okay, so I will type that out as the poll is open.
Is that the same way that I've worded it, or it's been worded in the poll that you're wording it in the chat, James? I just want to
Yeah,
make
that's
sure
fine.
that lines up. Okay.
All right, I'll give it the last couple of seconds because I was a little slow to type. And I'm going to end the poll now. So the motion to postpone indefinitely fails, which means we're going to go back to the main motion. So I did have one person on the speakers list before, which was Abdul. So Abdul, I'll let you speak on this before we begin. When we're speaking on motions, we need to make sure that it's about the topic at hand here. So I know that there are some issues about the timing of the meeting or some of the things that may have happened around the meeting. We've got to keep it strictly to the actual motion that we're discussing and nothing else. And with that, I'll pass it over to Abdul and then Joshua next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Abdul. I am a third-year engineering student, and I am here to make my voice heard. I'd like to begin by saying that I am strongly against this motion. This motion is a mockery of democracy, and I would like to begin by talking about why this motion should fail. This motion is trying to change quorum for referendum from 5% to 15% to 5%, meaning that for something to pass, the UVSS needs to show it to 5% of the student body, and half of that 5% needs to agree for it to affect all students. I also like to point to another part of the UVSS policy where any student trying to get a question on a referendum has to get 10% of students to physically sign that they agree with this, that they support this motion before it even gets put on referendum. This means that the board of directors has basically free will to put whatever they want on referendum and meet a very, very low bar for quorum. While 5% sounds like a lot, very much isn't, and it isn't standard. Instead of that, a independent student has to go out of their way to physically talk to 10% of the student undergrad body, get signatures and have those verified months in advance just to get a motion to be put on referendum. This gives the UVSS board of directors such a low bar and puts such high odds for students to do things themselves that it basically becomes a UVSS board of directors decides whatever they want to do, and then it kind of happens maybe depending on how well they engage with students. I think this is an awful motion, and I do want to finally just say sorry for all the DAOs in here who put a lot of hard work. Lead directors don't really listen to or interact with you unless they want you to do something, and I'm very sorry about that. But
so it does need to be directed to the question at hand.
Okay. Yeah, I yield the rest of my time. I think I've said enough.
Thank you, Abdul. Joshua.
All right, I just wanted to talk a bit about what was brought up earlier in the big speech we all listened to. So it was brought up about different places like SFU and their student populations. So I actually talked with a lot of students there. I have family that have been there, and none of them are actively engaged with their student society at all. I don't see how lowering quorum is going to do anything but distance students from engagement within the student society, which I don't think is a good thing. I'm hoping that people can see where the faults are with this, with lowering quorum from 15% to 5%. It's not going to allow for more engagement with people, and keeping it at a higher number is going to give more motivation for UVSS members to push and advertise things and show why things should be pushed forward.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, is Effie Taylor? I'm sorry if I said your name wrong.
It's Effie. I'd like to just say that I guess the reasoning for this being introduced was last year we failed to make quorum because there was essentially was held hostage in that people purposely did not vote because of one motion when there was other motions, as mentioned by Maren earlier, that failed, which was reducing costs because it was held hostage over one specific vote. And once again, as mentioned by Maren, this was only raised in 2014, and we're lowering it to an area that is on par with other universities. And I think it's just fear mongering and a bit of a mob mentality over something that was normal for other universities and was normal in the past for the UVSS as well.
Thank you. Q.
Hi. Also, Effie talked about it a bit, but just wanted to make sure everyone knows that this was a motion brought up before, not just our board, where we are really open to not passing the motion at all as well. Like, this is the point, this is why we're here. The reason that it came up, just to reiterate, is that there was the public interest research group last year, and there was a fee that was being collected from students, even though there was no such thing as the PERG, like it didn't exist any longer. And so the reason why the past board wanted to lower quorum was so that we weren't collecting that extra fee from students. We were trying to lower your fees, in fact. So we don't want to take your money at all. And like, it's really great to see everyone out here and like engaging in this process. But please know that like the reasons where it was rooted from was so that we could advocate on behalf of students so they didn't have to pay more student fees. And again, we are completely open to this being turned down as a motion. This is why we're here. And if we aren't happy with the 5%, it could be a different percent, it could be no change. But again, like, we are not here to make decisions on behalf of all of you, like without hearing what you have to say. Thanks.
Okay. I have Dominique Wickett and then Lucas Mayo. So Dominique, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I'd like to talk on some of the points of this motion being presented. One big one is a talk on how last year we weren't able to meet quorum for the UVSS vote motions. That seems to be an issue where not proper engagement was done with COVID. And if it is a last year not meeting quorum on voting, making a referendum like that to just automatically change now the amount we need to pass a motion seems to be like cutting off your finger because you got a little bit of a burn. Instead, motions should be done and non-motions to engage with groups, especially during a time of COVID where people were not as engaged as they rightly should have been during such an event. So having a motion done like this doesn't really meet the root problem. It makes it easier for motions to be passed, but not necessarily engaging with people. And it's sort of pushing the issue aside. And one point also with this motion is there was an issue with not removing fees. Necessarily though, speaking just because that fee was still being collected doesn't really come out net neutral fiscally because these motions would be further pushed to allow more fees to be collected. So I don't like that little talk being done regarding preventing of that fee collection when future ones could easily be introduced with a lower quorum. That's all. Thank you.
Lucas. Lucas, are you there? Okay, Lucas, I'm not hearing anything. Oh, all right, 2 seconds. They've asked for. All right, I'll give you that 2 seconds.
Hello.
Hey.
Oh, you hear me? Okay, great.
Yep.
So yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about or add on to what the person before me said. So what the director of events said with regards to wanting to reduce quorum in order to pass something that would reduce our fees, I think reducing quorum isn't really the answer to that. If you're not able to meet quorum, you know, you have to work more on outreach and getting students more involved as opposed to just going, okay, we need to make this easier for ourselves. I just think it's kind of the easy way out and not really a realistic and democratic way to do things.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I know you said your name twice and I've mispronounced both times, but I'll try again. Ivy? Taylor?
It's Effie.
I'm going to get it eventually, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Effie. I just maybe provide more context to last year's vote as well. It wasn't an issue of outreach that we didn't make quorum. There was a direct campaign to avoid voting, so we would purposely not make quorum. That was spread through Reddit and Discord, and it is the same communities that have mobilized here to be in the meeting today. So last year they were holding the quorum hostage because of a specific motion they didn't agree with, and in doing so, they prevented a separate motion for reducing the fee to pass.
All right. So I want to make sure that we do keep these comments just to the motion. I understand there are other things happening, but as much as we can, directly to the motion. And next on the speakers list, sorry, one moment here. Strawn, I'm sorry, Emar, I did not say your name right at all.
I'm quite yet. I just want to point out that earlier in this meeting, we were saying that as a result, the results of the referendum last year showed strong student support for the motions, but they didn't meet quorum. Here I'm learning that there was a dedicated effort to not vote in order so that it wouldn't get passed. That implies that the actual results of it were skewed by those who wanted it to pass voting and those who didn't want it to pass not voting.
And I just have a question. We do have quorum. Quorum is 117. So we've had quorum in the entire meeting. And then we have next on this list, Anton.
Yeah, so I just want to add on what the previous person mentioned. If there is a dedicated group of students not wanting to add anything, isn't that what democracy is? We're voting against it. So why is it a problem when a majority of students agrees on something that is not right? That is my question to that person.
So I'll leave it there because I don't necessarily think we need to go back and forth. I think it's a question for you folks to contemplate. Sam, Mauro?
Hi. I'd just like to address the fact that one of the rationales, I do not agree with one of the rationales for this motion. That rationale being the boycotting of a vote. Boycotting is absolutely a valid form of democratic interaction. We are even taught in the British Columbia curriculum that one of the means to a democratic society is that you have the ability to boycott. And trying to circumvent this boycotting, I personally believe, is really going against the spirit of democracy, and it's typically been used historically to, bypass valid votes. So I just don't think, it just doesn't sit well with me that the idea that this motion is being, one of the rationales for it is to bypass boycotting of votes. Thanks.
Okay, I did receive a message from somebody who's not able to speak, from Angus, and they would like to call the vote. They don't have a mic. So somebody on the speakers list is asked to call the vote or go to vote. This requires a seconder. Is there anybody who would like to second a motion?
I'm Seamus and I second.
Seconded by about 7 people. Requires a vote, so we're not going to have any discussion on this. If we could pull up the yes no vote again. So I will quickly type in the chat. Okay, if the poll can be opened. You have 1 minute.
Point of order, can we get a clarification of what yes means and no means for people who might not be unaware?
So I voted, or I put it in the chat. So you're going to vote yes if you want to go to the vote on this main motion. Vote no if you want to keep debating on this motion. Is that clear? Is there anything else you think I should add to that?
Nope, you're good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Great. And the poll, share the results. So the motion to go to the vote has passed. So we're going to go to the vote. I will get that for you in a moment. Because of democratic rules of order, Maren, did you want to give you the mover's prerogative to talk to this?
Point of order, does that happen even if we called the question?
Democratic rules of order is a very brief rule set, and it doesn't give clarification on this. Yeah. But I don't hear from them, so I'm going to say we should just go to vote.
Oh, sorry. I was just waiting for you to finish. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Sorry, go ahead.
All this is to say, thanks for your interaction with this motion. I said everything that I wanted to say before. I have nothing to say.
Okay, there we go. All right, let's move on to the vote. So I'll type it out in the chat again, and I'll leave it open until we're done. Until I'm done chatting or done typing. Hopefully everybody can make through my or read through my typos. So we'll keep that open for another 20 seconds. And reminder, special resolutions such as this one require a 2/3 vote.
Sorry, just to clarify, so we are voting now for the special resolution. Yes to pass it, no to deny it. Okay,
That is
thank
correct.
you.
Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. I'll share the results. So that is defeated. And we'll move on to the next motion. And I'm just going to, oh, no, coffee break. How long are we coffee breaking for?
10 minutes. We still have a little bit more to get through. We do have more prizes at the end or continuing on throughout the meeting, but thank you for sticking around for this 2.5 hour journey at the beginning.
So just to clarify for folks, the next resolution is the one that was added to the agenda. So when we are back, can we say at 4:45, so a little less than 10 minutes? Nice round number, and we'll get to that motion.
Thanks, everyone.
Can we add a motion to make UVSS fees optional?
Unfortunately, that would require amending the agenda and again require notice. So wouldn't be possible for this meeting.
Which meeting would that be optional for?
If you gave proper notice for the meeting, you could do it to the next meeting. So you'd have to follow the outline in the bylaws to add it to the next agenda. Yeah, and the special annual general meeting.
Could the chair's decision on that be ruled by a vote?
I mean, you can overrule any of my rulings. Whether or not they get implemented is not my decision.
Okay.
Fee changes require referendum as well, as somebody is responding to, and I believe it also contravenes the University Act.
Hey, James, can I pop in?
Only if it actually becomes a full motion. At this point, I think it's just
okay. Yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
So can we make it a full motion then?
Right now we're on a recess. So nobody's here to move motion to for another 3 minutes. Yeah, so people are asking questions. Well, if you ever want to speak on a motion, type X to me in the chat and I'll get to you. And that would be how we'll put you on the speakers list. Okay, it is 4:45, so let's bring this meeting back to order. Okay, prize time.
Woohoo! AirPods. So the next prize that we have for folks is a pair of AirPods. I'm just going to get Steph to work their magic and generate the next person. We'll find our lucky winner. Steph, please work your magic for a pair of AirPods. Folks that might just be returning to their computers or phones, we're just waiting to give away a pair of AirPods, and then we'll carry on for the rest of the meeting. And thank you for all 271 of you for being here for now over 2 hours. Really appreciate it. Okay, drum roll, please. Boom, boom. Our lucky winner of a pair of AirPods is Jasper St. John. Jasper St. John, are you here? Yay, I got an I'm here in caps. Wicked. We'll be in contact with you to make sure that you get these. Congrats. Wicked.
Okay, so before we go to this motion here, we do have a motion that was submitted. So I'm going to put the link to the chat. Maybe can we actually share that motion? So
Yeah, I can stop screen sharing and then share my screen to the document. Would that be good for folks?
yes, that would be ideal. And I'll put the link in the chat for anybody who wants to look at it directly. Okay, so as you'll see here, this motion has been moved. Is there a seconder for this motion? If you'd like to second this motion, please unmute and say I second and say your full name.
I second Dana Anab.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, so this motion, I will read over some of the changes quickly, and then I will pass it over to Abdul, who moved it, and then we will move into the speakers list. So this bylaw amendment is a special resolution requiring 2/3 vote to pass. It amends bylaw 5.1, striking in part A6, 11, and adding 2 directors at large, and then adding in an entire section E, which reads the following directors elected by their membership from the respective faculties, and then lists a number of different faculties. In 5.2, A adds in faculty directors. If you can scroll down for me. Adds in 5.6, election of faculty directors to the board of directors. Faculty directors shall be elected by members of the student society that are officially declared in the faculty that the director would be representing. And then under 6.6, adds an E, faculty director candidates must be officially declared in the faculty they seek to represent. And then I believe there's no change in 8.6. And then 8.9, faculty directors, the faculty director shall, and then A, assist the board in the performance of its duties, B, scrutinize the activities of the lead directors, C, participate on at least 2 committees of the student society, and D, represent the students in their faculty to the best of their abilities. So the motion has been moved and seconded. Abdul, you moved it, so you get to speak to it first. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, I'm sorry for the unorthodoxy of how this motion was presented. I didn't receive notice of this general meeting, so I didn't have time to give notice to the UVSS. But here we go. This motion serves to make the board of directors more more diverse in a different way. It serves to make it more diverse in terms of academics and types of students on campus. Students on campus deal with a bunch of different issues, and each faculty and each group of students has different problems. For example, in engineering and computer science, we deal with co-op, we deal with mandatory co-op and things of that nature that, for example, I don't think a lot of students deal with. Likewise, education students deal with practicum, business students deal with networking, stuff like that. And I feel like the UVSS has repeatedly failed to account for these different styles of teaching and learning that happen on campus. Historically, the UVSS has been mainly run by poli-sci students, and I'll take a quote from a Martlet article that was written a few years ago, 10 poli-sci gargoyles living under the sub. That is a quote that was written by another, I think a director of the board a few years ago, while he was in office. And I want to change that. I think that students deserve good, accountable governance that hopes to deal with the issues that face students in the day-to-day. And I think that's the purpose of a student union. And I don't think the UVSS does that. And this is why I'm presenting this motion. This motion will change how the UVSS board of directors is structured in a very small change, taking 9 out of the 11 current directorate large positions and having each of them represent one of the faculties. That means there will be at least one person from every single faculty at the University of Victoria on the board of directors to bring up these issues that the UVSS might not hear about just because of how it's structured right now. It's fairly simple. I can answer any questions if people have them about word choice and how it's structured, but it doesn't add any more positions or add any more big things that people have to do. It just, like people as in directors have to do. It just takes some of those positions and specializes them a bit to make sure that we have adequate representation from all types of students from all over campus. Thank you so much, and I will yield my time to the chair.
Thank you so much. Kathleen.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a few comments and questions about this motion. Earlier, when we were voting to add it to the agenda, some folks mentioned that it was on the board's agenda last year, and it failed. And so I was looking at the minutes link that was sent in the chat, and it looks like it was actually deferred. So I'm wondering what happened to this motion in the end, and if it was defeated or retracted by whoever moved it. I also wanted to say that this year is my first year on the board of UVSS. So I'm a director at large. When I applied to be a director at large, I ran unopposed there, and I and all the other directors at large were acclaimed. So if anyone from any faculty in the school wanted to be a member of the UVSS board, they would have been able to access that without any barriers. Many of the lead directors also ran unopposed and so were acclaimed. So it would be better to have students engaged with the UVSS and with electing their representatives in order to have diversity. And that brings me to the point of diversity. If we were to have diversity of faculties on the board, I think that would actually diminish the diversity of other types of representation. We want to make sure that we have people of different experiences on the board, including age, gender, ethnicity, ability, class, and all of those things. And if we were to actually follow this and have representative from various faculties, I think that would diminish this diversity because it would give the most privileged of each faculty the position. Also speaking to practicums and co-ops and other sorts of special interests from different faculties. Earlier this term, I was actually working with someone about practicums and accessing sort of like equal financial compensation as co-ops. And I understand that practicums and co-ops and mandatory co-ops are all treated differently. We ended up discussing this and deciding that advocating for a tuition decrease would actually make more sense for everyone involved and it would benefit more students. So that kind of shows that siloing folks off into issues that are part of their faculty might just create a lot of work and then a lack of focus on solutions that are going to benefit more students. So yeah, and I just wanted to remind everyone of my question about what happened to this motion last year when it was brought, because I couldn't find the answer in the minutes. Thank you.
I can answer that if.
I mean, I should defer to this somebody who's on the board right now if they have that answer, and if they don't, then I'll ask you. So, Myron, do you know the answer, or?
I can only answer in terms of what I recall. So I can very briefly, and I think Abdul might have a better answer, but I know that this motion was deferred many times and revised many times, and that it that's all that I know. I'm sorry, that's not a very good answer, but that's what I do remember from last year.
Abdul, can you briefly try to answer that?
Yes, this was my personal project for a lot of my board term, and at some point, right before the AGM for last year, I resigned because of mental health issues and a toxic work environment, and so I wasn't able to continue working on it because I couldn't continue working in the UVSS. So I just worked on it and decided to bring it up at an AGM.
Kaylin.
Okay, hello. Hi, everyone. I have a lot of things to say. So let me just lead off with this. This is a terrible, terrible policy. And we need no more evidence of it being a terrible policy than to look at our student senators who do use this system and who see a vast majority of student representatives go unelected because there aren't enough people to fill these spots. My second point is that as a former director at large, you should be more than familiar with our procedure. And if you haven't done your research, that's on you. This is so out of order. It's a massive waste of hundreds of people's time. I don't know why we're still talking about this. But honestly, if you're going to live by procedure, you will die by procedure.
Point of order, didn't the assembly already decide to take this motion into consideration?
Sorry, Abdul, if you have a point of order, you can put the point of order in the chat. I will call upon you, then you can say it, then I will rule on your point of order. So you've said it. Do you want to restate your point?
Yes, sorry about that. Didn't the assembly already decide that they are interested in looking at this motion?
No.
So yeah, so
you aren't discussing the content of it. You just are saying this is a waste of time.
No, sorry, you have no. Abdul,
sorry, I apologize.
There's no back and forth. You're speaking to me. You say your point, and then we're done. Okay. The assembly has ruled that it can go on the agenda. It is a valid point for somebody to say that it doesn't meet the requirements of the notice on the Societies Act. That's a consideration that people should have to have.
Yeah, so I realize that the people who are on this meeting are here with an agenda, and that's totally fine. That's democratic participation and fair enough. But on behalf of everyone else who came here in good faith, I say thanks for wasting our time. This is completely out of order, and it's a bad policy to begin with. So have fun. Thanks, everyone.
Dana?
Hi, everyone. I was wondering if someone, either Abdul, probably Abdul, and someone from the board can talk to the financial impact. Will these directors be paid? What is their pay structure? And someone mentioned that there will be some lawyer fees involved. What does that entail? These details, I think, are very important to discuss in this meeting.
And so there was a point of order raised. I recognize that people are tense And I apologize, I need to, as chair, need to be facilitating in a way that is positive for everybody. I do ask that people are respectful in their tone on all sides. And Dip has messaged saying that they can respond to that question. So I'm going to go to Dip.
All right, so just to answer your question, this policy does not clarify what exactly the pay structure is, which means if implemented, the directors, the faculty directors, as it says, would be an unpaid position. However, what I was referring to before is because this was not brought up in proper order, that opens up the UVSS to litigation, and that can be very, very dangerous for us because, as you will see in my financial presentations that are coming up, we operate on a very strict and restricted budget. Any litigation makes a very deep impact that directly affects students and can potentially even bankrupt the society, which means there will be a lot of people left without support.
You might be muted, James, if you just spoke.
Sorry, I definitely did. That's my fault. Dip, you were actually next on the speakers list if you wanted to add anything further.
Oh, thank you. Apart from the points that I've already said in answer to a question before about the legality of this, I do think this is not a good policy for the reason that it creates more barriers than reducing it. Just looking at our election years, we do have difficulty in filling those positions. What this does is removes that structure where the board can even function. And I think that it will be very, very harmful for either a lead director or a director at large trying to work through this process, especially because we don't have any other structure supporting this right now. And any change to bylaw for this structure to be sustained will not happen till at least the AGM, if at all. So that means we're going to be stuck in limbo for a very long time on this policy because it was just not brought up properly. Thanks.
Andrew, you're next.
Thank you. I would just like to say that I was in a position on the student council in a previous university before transferring in here. I do not have any experience in the financial department, but we did have directors of different faculties, and I did find that the input that they brought to each of our meetings was some of the most diverse and insightful input. They usually were positions that were filled. There were on the rare occasion that a position was not filled because of lack of knowledge or lack of participation. However, when those positions are filled, usually the student that is filling that position is someone who is a leader in their faculty. They are able to then gather information from other students in their faculty and bring in knowledge that everyone else would like to carry to the UVSS, but they're not sure either how, or they do not feel confident in bringing in that information. I am not sure at all how the financial costs would work on this. That's not my specialty, but I do believe that we should continue to bring forward this motion and discuss it because it is a very important position to have for our society.
Nigel.
Yeah, I'd like to speak against this motion today. So I'm currently a director at large on the board. And the way that this motion has been adopted into the agenda is not in accordance with the bylaws and the process that's normally followed in order to adopt a motion onto the agenda of a meeting. But let me be clear, if this motion passes, it will not be binding. But what it will do is open up a significant and expensive legal process. And it's really in the best interest of students to not have the society bogged down in long, messy litigation. Also, my second point is that we just had a significant discussion about democratic procedure. And there's only, right now we're at 273 participants in the meeting. That's like maybe 1% of students at the university. And this is a really significant change. So we just had a huge discussion about democratic procedure. So we should not adopt this motion. It's not been properly considered. And the vast majority of students at the university have had no input whatsoever or have any idea that any of this is happening. So I yield to the chair.
Thank you. Joshua.
Hello, my name is Josh. I'm the Director of International Student Relations here, and I would like to just share some words against this bill as well. As we've heard from some of the other board members and folks familiar with the bylaws of the UVSS, this motion is, piece of policy is brought very quickly with immediacy and does not follow the bylaws, and it, as mentioned, it cannot be passed in a binding nature, along with the financial repercussions of it. Our board has discussed other financial issues that we're working with, such as other representatives of our advocacy groups and such, not being compensated enough for their work. And we are working every day to make sure that our different groups of students are represented and making sure that our course unions and everybody is heard. And so this discussion is a wonderfully progressive conversation, but this piece of policy right here has many flaws in the structure, as brought up by Kathleen and Dip and other members, that the breakdown of these new director positions are restrictive. And while it's we should applaud hearing voices from other faculties, the specific way that these new director positions are set up are going to restrict plenty of voices who would like to run for these positions, only a single person from each faculty. And this just needs much more conversation.
All right, Liam. Liam, are you there?
Sorry, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I am wondering if it is possible to bring forward a motion to postpone this motion, as it has just been brought to our attention today. And considering the way it's gone in the past, I feel that we should take more time to have discussions around what this would mean with the rest of the student population.
Sorry, folks, the alarm just went off in my building. So 1 second.
Oh my goodness. Okay. James.
Sorry, alarm has now been turned off. Liam, so you were asking if you can move a motion to postpone. The motion to postpone would be in order. So yes, you can move that motion if you'd like.
I would like to do so.
Okay, so there's been a motion by Liam to postpone this motion. Did you want to postpone it to a later date or indefinitely?
To a later date. Preferably, I guess, the next meeting.
Sorry, to when? The next meeting?
Is the next meeting in February?
Yes, so the special annual general meeting in February.
I'd like to postpone it till then.
Okay. So it's been moved. Is there a seconder for that motion to postpone?
I second that. Helen, second that.
Helen done. Thank you. So, and sorry, Josh, I did see your name. You are still on the list. Don't worry. So it's been moved and seconded that we postpone to a later date. And the other question, yes, you do have to message me first before you speak. We are now on a motion to postpone this to the SAGM in February. And would anybody like to speak? Now, the people who are on the speakers list now, you will stay on the speakers list. If we go back to the main motion, I will start a second speakers list for the motion to postpone. just to keep things confusing for everybody. So if you would like to speak to the motion to postpone to the February meeting, please give me an X in the chat. If you have a quick question, you do need to, if you put in the chat, I'll try to answer it, but it's easier for me if you just put an X in there and you ask it out loud. So Dip, you are up first.
Is an amendment to an amendment possible? Or so, because this would be an amendment to a motion.
You can, and for this case, you can amend the time at which it would be postponed to.
Okay. Okay, then I move to postpone this indefinitely.
So
to amend the motion to.
Yeah.
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 May I give one point, James? I'm sorry that I'm interrupting.
If
just about this.
Procedure, sure.
Yeah. So in Democratic Rules of Order, it says there that you can't govern what happens at the next meeting. So postponing it indefinitely means that it can still be brought up at another meeting. That's my interpretation of the rules.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That is correct. Postpone indefinitely wouldn't stop you from bringing forward the motion at a future meeting. The postpone to a certain date would mean that it would be at the next meeting. So a motion has been moved. Is there a seconder to postpone to indefinitely? Change, so we're amending the postpone to a certain time to postpone indefinitely. Is there a motion? Is there a seconder to that motion?
Hi, it's Q Rojas. I second it.
Okay. Motion has been seconded. No further amendments are allowed at this time. Dip, would you like to motivate?
Yes, thank you. So the reason I am advocating for moving this motion, for postponing this motion indefinitely, is because there needs to be a lot of work done to actually make this system sustainable, or this framework sustainable. That means even if we postponed or defeated, we will still be bringing that up to our lawyers, and there's going to be a lot of consultation. There's going to be, I would personally like a student body to be consulted on this as well. That takes time. February, with especially December and a large part of January gone, that does not leave a lot of time for us to actually engage with the student body to make it feasible or sustainable enough so that, again, we don't do something that is untoward or is detrimental to the democratic process. And what you could, as students, do is keep on bringing this up in the future so that the board, whoever it is in the future, does not forget about it. However, the February deadline is quite restrictive for us to implement such a big change right now. Thank you. James, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. I'll do it 3 more times this meeting. Joshua, you're up.
All right. I'd be against postponing this indefinitely because to me, I'm not too sure on the details of how things are run at the UVSS or anything like that. But to me, that's just saying that it's just being thrown on the back burner and it won't really be touched until an AGM comes up. And then it'll just be a constant loop of, oh, we need more time to talk about this. I have a multitude of other points I wanted to make about it, but at this point, I don't believe I'm able to talk about them. But with this, it sounds like a lot of the reasonings people have against it didn't really give any information for why they didn't want it to happen, and more just came out of like pure spite or hate out of some other reason. So I don't really see the reasonings for this to be postponed indefinitely and not to have a conversation about it now rather than just put it on the back burner.
Okay. Angus, you're up next.
Hi, yeah. I think we've all been waiting here a long time, and I'd like to call the motion into question.
Okay. And you've been seconded by Nicholas Sandor, I believe, because I just asked for the same thing in the chat to me. So I'm going to say that you're the seconder. Hope you're okay with that, Nicholas. And I'm going to do something a little bit different here. Is there anybody who opposes us going to a vote on the motion to postpone? If you object to us doing that, I'm looking for unanimous consent to go to a vote. See if I can get it. If you object to it, write an X in the chat, and we'll go to a vote on if we want to have a vote.
This is a vote to postpone, correct?
Okay, I'll explain this once more. And in fact, I'm gonna not do that thing I just said because I think it's gonna be too confusing. So it's been moved and seconded that we go to a vote. So what's gonna happen now is we are going to have a poll come up. The poll will ask for yes or no. Vote yes if you want to have a vote on the motion to postpone indefinitely. This isn't the final vote on it. It's whether or not you want to go to that vote. Vote no if you want to continue debate. Okay. And with that, you have 1 minute. All right, a couple more seconds here. So that passed. So we're going to go straight to the vote on this. Can we reuse the poll that we had before on the motion to postpone indefinitely?
I've just made a couple new polls that are just like that. So
okay, so we've had a motion to go to the vote. So we're going to the vote now. So I saw that somebody's asked for chat speak, but we won't be able to go to you, unfortunately. So vote yes if you want to postpone indefinitely. Oops. Sorry, Deborah. Vote no, not vote no. There's a question about the polls themselves. These polls are being created on the fly. So I will do my best to write a description in the chat about what the polls are for. It may take me a couple seconds to get it out, but I'll give people time to vote once I put the description in the chat. Okay, and I'm going to end the poll here. So the motion to amend the motion to postpone to the next AGM was defeated. So now we're going to go to the motion to postpone to the SAGM in February. So I'm going to start a new speakers list for this point. So Anmol.
Hi, yes, I would like to call the motion to question for this one.
I do have to let at least one person speak on it, and then I'll test the house on going to the vote. Okay.
Okay.
Rem, do you want to go next?
Hi there. I've heard the main motivation, the most serious motivation I've heard for postponing has to do with litigation, but I'm quite confused. We haven't heard anything about who would be bringing litigation and what cause they would have, why this would open up the UVSS to legal issues. So I'd really like an answer to that before we decide whether to postpone.
Does anybody want to respond to to that particular point from the board?
I can answer if that's okay.
Yeah.
So Rem, it looks like because this wasn't given enough time before the meeting was called to order, like the Societies Act doesn't let us legally adopt this into our bylaws. And so it's just more of like, even if we voted to approve this motion, how would we be able to include this into the UVSS? Does that make sense? So apart from the legality of it, I do have some context just about this motion for.
No, it's got to just be the response.
No worries.
Unfortunately.
Thanks.
Yeah. So we did have a motion to go to a vote, and it was seconded by Alexander Buss. So we're going to open up another poll here. And so so you're going to be voting on if you want to end debate, vote yes. If you want to end debate, vote yes. If you want to keep debating the motion to postpone to the SAGM, vote no. So it's be the motion to postpone to the SAGM in February. So that means if you, yeah. All right, and I'm going to close the poll. And so the motion to end debate passes. So now we're going to have a vote on the motion to postpone itself. So if you want this motion to be taken off this agenda and added to the agenda in February, you would vote yes. If you want it to be decided today, you'd vote no. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. I'll show you the results. So that fails. So now we're back to the main motion that was added to the agenda. Now I have the speakers list from before, so bear with me. Joshua, you are up first.
Thank you very much. So I just wanted to talk a bit about the representation for each faculty. So I'm a pretty new student, but from what I've gathered, it sounds like some of the representation so far has been really heavily sided to certain programs or faculties. And with regards to some of the points brought up before in the past, some people are saying there's kind of no opposition to positions in the UVSS. But I think with having a culture being fostered with certain faculties kind of dominating that kind of scene, it would kind of pressure others against running for those positions. So I'm in support of this because getting a wide variety of input from different faculties would be only beneficial to a student society, which is meant to represent all students. There's no reason that having less faculty representation would seem like detrimental to me. Having more representation on a faculty level would just make more people involved with it. And with regards to the other points brought up, I don't see any points, or I don't see many points brought up against the motion to give me more information about why they were against it. It just sounded like a lot of people were angry about having more work to deal with. And lots of people are saying they don't have much time with it. Or with regards to the UVSS, it sounds like they are saying it's a bit rushed, but I'm a bit confused with that, as it sounds like this motion has been in the workings or brought up previously. So I'm not sure why they haven't looked into it more previously.
Liam, I have you on the list next. Liam, if you do end up coming back, send an X in the chat and I'll put you back on the list. Oh, Liam, are you there?
Liam? Oh, sorry.
Is it Fenna?
Hi, thank you. I just have a question about what would happen if these directors' positions wouldn't be filled, because Kathleen, I think, mentioned at the beginning about like running unopposed for the director at large positions, and so what happens if candidates can't be found for these like faculty specific directors? Do those positions just is the board just smaller then? And what impact would that have on the the running of the UBSS if the board is smaller?
So I can answer some of that question a little bit. In years past, if somebody hasn't put their name for a position, that position remains vacant. Would anybody else on the board like to add anything else to this question?
I think it just means that we have more responsibilities added to our task list.
Rem, you're up next.
Hey there. My question had to do with the postponing, so it's been partially addressed. But I would like to reiterate the most relevant argument I've heard in favor of not passing this vote today. The most solid argument has to do with expensive litigation, but I still haven't heard what the basis for that litigation would be. And I'm wondering if that is just if there is a solid basis for that, and if so, I'd really like to hear it from one of the detractors.
Would any of the directors like to speak to that? I have a couple of people who I think wanted to respond, so I'll let a director speak up.
I can speak to that, James.
Sure.
Regardless of what this motion is, the contents of this motion, bringing forward a motion without putting it on the agenda that was distributed and accessible to members a certain X amount of days prior towards the meeting goes against the BC Societies Act, which is the act by which we are governed, and that's provincial legislation. And so in my experience on the UVSS board, I haven't come into any sort of conflict with the Societies Act, so I don't know exactly the process by which anything or what would happen,
Sure.
but that's why that would.
I have to interrupt you for just 1 second. There's been a point of order. Abdul?
I double checked the Societies Act, and you can ask for a waiver of notice for students to waive the notice if students generally agree with this. So there are ways that the UVSS could get around that. That's it.
So I just wanted to clarify that that's actually not a point of order. That's a point of debate. But the Societies Act is under section. I'm actually not going to read out the Societies Act right now. I'm going to let Marin continue.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought a little bit. But essentially, yes, it would be the BC Societies Act, the governing body, or the act that governs societies in British Columbia, which would, I said what I was going to say. That's that.
Okay.
I can add to that if that's okay.
If you can keep it quick.
Okay. So along with to address a few questions about the basis of those litigations. One of the simplest things I can tell you is about, for example, our healthcare reserve fund. The UVSS controls that, and that means there might be, with some kind of exceptions. We are a part of Pacific Blue Cross. However, there are certain things that are not covered, which the UVSS covers for medication, called drug exception forms. If we have expensive litigation, that might not exist. Different supports, different clubs. For example, the UVSS this year decided to support the BAC program, which was brought up by our different advocacy groups. That will not be there. There will not be any services at the sub. There might also be a reduction to the food available, because the sub does provide a great many different food options, and that will be just as detrimental. So it just piles on. I don't want to feel like, I don't want to be like it's scaremongering, but these are very real situations. As speaking as, of course, as the person who is tasked with managing those funds, it can get very expensive very quickly, and it will definitely not be very pretty for any of us over here, not just the UVSS board.
Okay, Helen? Helen, are you there? Oh, never mind. Okay. Deborah?
Yeah, hi. I just want to say I feel really uncomfortable with this motion when, as a whole, we haven't had proper time to review and consider the widespread implications that this will have for the entire organization. Putting forth a motion that would fundamentally change the structure and functioning of the UVSS, I feel, requires more time and consideration from undergraduate students. I also want to say that, like, the reason why there are 11 directors at large elected, 2 work under each lead director, and it's not decided on from faculty. Like, as a UVSS, we serve every single undergraduate student equally, and it's not decided on by faculty.
Okay, Sam?
Hi. So I just want to address a few things that don't really sit well with me with things that some people have said in this meeting so far. The first thing is that I don't think that this motion has been addressed in a particularly constructive manner by those who oppose it. In particular, a lot of issues with this motion have been addressed that do not involve actually improving upon the motion at hand to address these issues. Rather, everything has been about shutting down the motion entirely because of these issues that have been brought up. So, for example, the issue that has been brought up with the legal fees, there haven't really been that many specific examples of why these many legal fees would be addressed by, and I don't think it's been adequately tackled to say that this is a reason that we should be completely shutting down this motion as a whole, because it just doesn't seem like it's been substantiated to me. And furthermore, I don't think that there has been enough fixing the problem that this is meant to address. Rather than shutting down this motion, or rather than trying to find a separate, better way to represent all the different faculties, many of the members of the board of directors have simply just shut down this motion entirely and not addressed what this is specifically trying to address, and propose an alternate solution. And I don't think that that's very sufficient when we just quite simply don't have enough representation from our diverse student body, in my personal opinion, because the main reason that we're all here is to study so that we can learn from these different faculties. And the fact that most of these faculties do not have proportional representation towards how they are in terms of how many students there are, it doesn't seem right to have this be counted as a representative body if it isn't representing the whole reason that we're all here at university. And quite honestly, I would like to hear the board of directors propose a alternative to this motion if they're willing to oppose this motion about this representation issue, rather than denying that there is an issue, or rather than simply shutting down this motion altogether, and quite honestly deflecting what I believe is deflecting what the real problem is. And another really minor thing is that I quite honestly do not believe that there will be less food available if the UVSS is not able to function in the manner that they describe, because as far as I know, this might require a bit of fact checking, but as far as I know, a lot of the businesses in the sub are actually quite self-sufficient with the amount of funds that they gather. And so, I mean, I'd personally just like to hear it articulated exactly how that will be the case. I could see Dip shaking his head, so I'd love to hear from him on that then, because I'm probably not as educated as he is considering he runs it. So that's just a couple of things that I don't really agree with about this motion. Thanks.
So I have gotten a number of messages asking that we go to a vote. I want to also note the couple people have sent me messages asking when they're on the speakers list. If you've already spoken once, you're not. There other people who haven't spoken yet will go before you. I did. There wasn't a technical error earlier on. When I asked board members for feedback on a question, and Kathleen informed me that there was she was muted, so I'm going to give Kathleen just a moment to add a couple of pieces in response to the question that was raised earlier. Kathleen, are you still there and able to speak?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, I had the wrong thing. Yeah, so as I was saying, Fenna asked earlier about what would happen if the board was smaller and if someone didn't run for the board in each faculty and the board ended up being smaller, what would happen in that case? And I just wanted to say that currently we are dealing with that situation. We have 11 spaces for DAOs, but we didn't get 11 DAOs running in the current election, so we have less, and that has actually been difficult for the board because we have less people, less capacity to do the services that we want to provide for UVSS, less people to draw on for experience. And I think that if we were to follow this motion and have representatives for the different boards, we would not have more diversity, but in fact we would probably just have the most privileged people from each faculty representing those faculties in a way that was disproportionate to the needs of the entire student body. And I think we should really focus on issues that are beneficial to the entire student body, such as lowering tuition.
I've got to be in response to the question that they asked.
Okay, so that was my response to Fenna's question, unless they have more to ask. But yeah, I was muted, so I think it would be good to make sure that the board has an opportunity to respond to any questions for the board. Thank you.
All right. I know there are a number of people of the board who may want to speak to that, but in the interest of time, there's already been several people from the board who have tried to answer. So I'm going to think that's probably a satisfactory answer for now. Ellis. You're next on the speakers list, Ellis. Okay. Evan.
Hi there. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I just have one quick clarifying question regarding there seems to be a lot of issues, probably rightly, or at least officially so, regarding the amount of time that was given or notice was given about this motion. So I'm only here because I got a message from the ESS that was an open message to the UVSS, and in which they alleged that they had not actually sent out proper official notice, but just posted a bunch of stuff on Facebook and Instagram and not actually sent out an email to the student body. Does that in any way have any effect on whether or not motions can be called if there was not actually any notice, official notice to the student body? I just want to know.
So your constitution does outline what notice is required. So I am having a quick look to see what is in your.
I don't even know if necessarily the allegations are true. It's just in the ESS message, it states that UVSS failed to provide official notice in the form of an email to members of the student body. So how would someone be able to propose a motion if they weren't given notice?
So, I mean, I can't comment on, actually, I will let Marin speak to the piece about notice.
Thanks, James. The UVSS doesn't actually have the ability on its own to send emails to the entire undergraduate student body. We have to do that through UVic's broadcast email system, and that we need a lot of notice and takes a lot of time. We did actually send an email through the broadcasting system. It was actually sent today, but I can absolutely go through all of the outreach that we do for the UVSS if that would be beneficial for folks to hear. It's just a really short list. We sent out multiple UVSS newsletters, submissions in the Office of Life's Student Life newsletter. There was a notice sent on October 4th about this. Another UVic broadcasting email as well as today. We did classroom talks, in-person tabling, posts on UVic Year 1 Instagram, takeovers of UVic Instagram, our website, a couple of online platforms that are UVic based, not UVSS based. We chalkboarded in the sub and posted it in the sub and on Facebook, and also information was given to first and second years, the folks in charge of Engage Leaders, which are part of Engage Pods, a new program run by the OSL. And then on our Instagram, I don't know if I noted that, but yep.
So for folks' interest, Society Act does outline notices that's required. Notice required for a general meeting would be satisfied if the society gave the proper, for society more than 250 people, which you folks clearly are, if they sent an email to every member who's provided their email address to them. In addition to that, they would reach notice if they had published in a newspaper 3 weeks immediately before the meeting, if that newspaper is identified in the bylaws, or put it on the website that is maintained by or behalf of the society and is accessible to all members of the society at least 3 weeks in advance. Given what I've heard, it sounds like the notice requirement was met. So I don't think that that should be an issue for the meeting itself. I hope that answers your question.
Sorry, just really quick. When was the things posted up on the newspaper, I think it was, and the website? Is there a date for that?
So it has to have any of those options that I just listed out would satisfy the requirements for notice. So an email out to members, be on the website, or a notice in one of the newspapers. Can you confirm, Marin, that one of those three things were done?
I can confirm, yes. And I'm gonna get in touch with my research and communications manager to get you the exact date.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anmal.
Hi. Yes, I just wanted to add that I think we've had quite a lot of debate on this. I feel like we're not covering any new ground here, and in the interest of everyone's time, I would like to call the motion into question.
Okay. So there's been a request to end debate. So I'm going to ask for a seconder.
Second.
Okay, Gabrielle has
I second.
So I would ask for a vote to go up. Is that poll ready? Okay, so you're going to, if you want to end debate, you're going to vote yes. If you want to keep debating, you're going to vote no. You have 1 minute.
Just for that individual that was wanting to know the date, it was October 4th that a newsletter.
Thank you very much.
Another 15 seconds. And there is a mover's privilege under democratic rules. So Abdul will get closing remarks before we actually go to the vote.
Okay, I'm loving all of this discussion, and I just want to say
Hold on
thank
one
you.
second.
Oh,
One
sorry.
second. Okay, now you can officially go for it. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, I want to thank everyone for being here. This motion has been brought up before. This motion has actually been in the works since 2018. I took this motion from Pierre-Paul Angelblazer, who was in Marin's position in 2018, and I've been working on it for the past year and a half. And it's been heavily researched. This is as developed as it's going to get. The rest, after this passes, if it does pass, the board will have to work on getting policy and do actual work to make it more than just a bylaw change. And that will be up to them. Moreover, I think this motion doesn't really discriminate. This is a motion that isn't going to be allowing the most privileged of students from each faculty to be represented. Anyone already on the UVSS as a DAL or as a leader is lead director, is already very, very privileged. The fact that you can put in volunteer time into this for unpaid work means you are privileged. This is us just not looking at people as little dots and less as people throughout campus with different things that they go through throughout the day. I think the most important thing that a student union should focus on in diversity, specifically on its board of directors, should be the broad spectrum of academic experiences that students go through every single day. Trying to do anything other than that seems largely undemocratic. This also isn't an idea that I'm coming up with from out of thin air. This is the way that it is done at UBC, U of A, UFC, University of Manitoba, University of British Columbia, Okanagan campus, other thousands of universities all over the world. This isn't new. We're just outdated. And this is bringing us up to making the UVSS a more functional and better student governance. I think that a lot of the rest of the criticisms of this motion were mainly fear mongering, so I'm not really going to touch on those. But other than that, I'm going to thank everyone for their time, thank everyone for their participation, and thank everyone for really showing what student engagement can lead to. Thank you.
Okay, we're now going to go to a vote on this resolution. This is a special resolution. And so that means it requires 2/3 to pass. So I'll ask for the poll to be put forward, or a poll to be put forward. You have 1 minute.
A yes is for the motion, correct?
Yes. Oops, sorry, sent it to the wrong person. So yes, this is the vote on the motion. Vote yes if you want to adopt the bylaw. Vote no if you do not want to adopt the bylaw. So give it another 10 seconds. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Share the results. So that motion does pass and the motion has been adopted. So we will move back now to the slideshow. If we can do that.
Okay. We're a little too far ahead. This is where we're supposed to be at.
Okay, so we're now at the financial motions. It requires a quorum of 20 people to get through. So the first one is a motion to adopt the 2020-21 budget. Before we go into that motion, we're going to hear a presentation from the Director of Finance. So I will pass over to the Director of Finance to go over the budget.
Thank you. Just a minute before I'm able to share my screen.
Tom, before we get into the presentation, do you want to say something?
No, I can wait until after the presentation.
Okay. I'll put you in speakers list then. And Dip, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So, hello everyone. As part of our fiduciary duties, the board of directors is responsible for the overall financial health of the society, and this is a method of transparency for the UVSS to adopt the budget as well as present our financial health to the body. So, what are we gonna talk about today? We're going to talk about our fee breakdown on where we are at. We will look at the audited financial statements. We're going to review our businesses, our services, our budget for this upcoming year, which is the 2021-2022 budget. I have a space for questions and closing. So let's get started. So where is your money going? So the UVSS fee breakdown is quite structured, and you don't pay like a lump sum that goes directly. There's different breakdowns for it. The only thing that I would kind of highlight is the UVSS OP over here, which is the UVSS operations fee. So essentially what you are paying for us to run the UVSS is that $26.60. And then there's a breakdown of where else the fee goes to, which is mostly towards different, like a place like Advocate Groups, the food bank, and various other places. And this is where we are compared to other student unions in BC. Our fee is $73.85 right now, compared to other student unions who definitely does have a slightly higher fee. So let's look at our audited statement. I'm gonna stop sharing here and go over that, but before I do, what is it? We hire an external firm, an accounting firm, to do audits for our statement every single year. And that is a requirement by the society's law as well, so that it is apparent and clear to the members as well as the government agency looking at societies that we are not embezzling funds or we are not doing something shady with student money, because it is collected on behalf of students for a specific purpose. So what I have pasted down here is probably the most important part of the financial audit, which is the opinion. And the opinion of the firm states that we are in accordance with the Canadian accounting standards for nonprofits. So nothing, let's say, untoward has happened so far. The full audited statement is presented online for anyone who wants to look at it. It is long and complicated, so I won't go into it a lot right now. However, if you do have any questions specifically about it, feel free to reach out. So now let's look at an overview of our businesses, where our businesses are right now. So we have quite a few businesses in the sub. I'm going to go one by one and give an overview of how they are doing and what we are expecting out of them this year. So the first one we're looking at is Felicitas, the campus pub. It had been going well a few years, but not so well right now. Of course, largely it has been affected by the pandemic, where mingling or there's been restrictions to socializing, and that has been a very big hit on that particular business. However, it is expected that once we are out of this kind of pandemic zone, that it will be back where it was and in a positive growth. Being there, which is our coffee shop, our cafe near Felicitas entrance, has been doing exceptionally well. I guess coffee is the lifeblood of students and everyone working in the sub, so it clearly shows. The grill, our main kind of dining, one of the two businesses that provide food on campus. Again, it's doing exceptionally well. For this year, we have had a large uptick in of the people who visit the grill, and it makes up for the dip that we did have last year. The health food bar, traditionally not been doing that well, and there has been a steady decline. And we continue to see that happen. We are looking at certain ways we can invigorate it again. However, until that is implemented, it will stay as such. Catering and conferences was another business that we have, especially relating to larger events. As you can see, it has also taken a big hit. It used to be one of our most profitable businesses, not so much now. Now, Zap Copy is the printing place in the sub, and they are also like a stationery store. There has been, again, a steady decline in the revenue, and it's not just because of the pandemic, but a lot of also changing student interests and needs, where we don't need to print as much anymore. So we're again reviewing plans or their business plans on how to make it better. Now, Cinecenter. Before I talk about the Cinecenter, it should be noted that the Cinecenter and the Munchie Bar, which is the concessionary shop right beside it, should be looked at together as they feed off each other. Right now, that's what the trend towards Cinecenter is. However, it makes up more than enough with Munchie Bar Present, where we are not only seeing people who are visiting Cinecenter, but everywhere else. So very good numbers over there. With Subtext, same as Zap Copy, there has been a change definitely in student interest for those businesses. We are again looking at new business plans to reinvigorate that. So it has been there for quite a few years, and we're seeing how it was one of my campaign promises to look into how we can make those profitable so that we are supporting our student fee, not taking away from it. Now let's look at some services and board budgets that we have. With Food Bank and Free Store, one of our most important and popular services that we provide, we are doing pretty well. These budgets are called as zero budgets, meaning whatever student fee goes into it is taken out or used completely by the end of the year. There is no deficit or surplus. With the Peer Support Center, it's a relatively newer service. We renovated that place, the space for the Peer Support Center a few years ago. Just this year, and we are seeing a good and positive feedback for it and a larger uptake of that service from students. That's with our elections fund. So again, it's a zero budget. However, with elections, they are able, according to our bylaw, they are able to exceed that budget by $5,000 per year, and that's only available once a year. Right now, this year, we have about $25,000 assigned towards elections fund. This is the budget for campaigns and community relations. This is the budget that basically funds all our different campaigns, be it Let's Get Consensual or what's another one? Textbook Broke. All of them are funded through this. Same for events. All events are funded through this budget again. Also programs, I'm sure Q will mention about the Hot Lunch program that is again provided by this budget. Members outreach. So this is a cost center, meaning there is not a lot of revenue, but it is coming from our operations fund. The zero budgets do not affect our bottom line. The cost centers do. So for this year, we have increased our outreach budget from last year to engage more students. And at least on social media, we've had a higher uptick. I'm sure Maren can speak a little bit about it when they give their reports, but as of now, that's what the budget looks like. EcoFoot. So EcoFoot, again, a relatively new budget. We do not have a committee for this particular budget right now. However, we are expecting it in the next few weeks. There should be one in front of the board in the next board meeting. I'm not going to say a lot about it, but our donations and grants budget, again, quite extensive this year. One of my election promises was to keep our advocacy groups and services well funded. A part of it is done through this donations fund. And that's where our legal consulting and professional fees are. If we get sued, for example, this is where the money comes from. Any kind of surveys we do in the sub, for example, last year we did a few energy audits to see if we can make the sub more greener. It again comes out from this fund. Now, where we are overall in our budget. Again, before I go into specifically for this year, I want to say that the UVSS is a not-for-profit society, meaning our bottom line should ideally be zero. This is the first time we have been this close to that. And it's because of a few good years that we have in the past. However, we cannot keep having a surplus because that will risk our nonprofit status. One thing that this graph doesn't show is because of a few years we have taken about $500,000 out of the operating fund into an operational reserve fund, or you can also call it a rainy day fund for specific operations. And now to the UVSS budget. Again, it's available online. The most important part of the budget was the last slide I just showed. That gives you where we are at an overall pace. If you would like to look at the very specifics and intricacies of where those budgets are, again, it's available online. So what have we been up to? Myself and my portfolio. A few things to note is that we have had unexpected hiring committees this year, a lot of it. The excluded management, which is a management who are not part of the union, who oversee the UVS as a whole. We've had to fill 2 of those positions. One of them is still currently unfilled until ratified by the board in the next meeting. So, and those committees take a long time. They were, of course, unexpected, so we couldn't plan for them, and that's where my main focus has been. Another thing that I've been doing is reviewing those business plans, as I've mentioned, for some businesses which are not doing that well, trying to see what else can work. To that end, one of the things that I wanted to do was diversify our businesses within the sub, or our revenue streams in the sub. We have 4 food businesses right next to each other. So economically, or in a business plan, it doesn't make as much sense because it can create liability. So if we have more diverse revenue streams, that protects what the UVSS can fund other projects. So we have had Electrigo added to that service this year. Electrigo is the portable chargers that you can check out near the Being There Cafe or at the entrance of Cinecendas. They're there, and that's just one of the efforts that we have. The secondly, as I had mentioned about EcoFood, that's the environmental sustainability programs. EcoFood as a committee did not exist before, so it was up to the director of finance to do whatever had to be done. However, there's a committee proposal right now in front of the board, which me and my DAOs have been working really hard on. And the recent feedback that we have received on that was there more people would like to be involved in it, which is a very good thing. And it makes it an open committee, so anyone is able to join. Nominations will be posted soon, and more information will be coming up in our website very soon. And lastly, because healthcare has always been a very important and tricky thing, Student Care has opened their office in the sub, which means if you have any questions regarding to your health plan or other parts of the health plan in terms of like reimbursements or anything, you can go to their office and talk directly to them. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I don't know if there'll be a place for that right now, but my email is always open. I've posted links to a few of the documents, as well as my work email, as well as a few of the excluded managements. That's all for me right now. Thank you.
Okay, and we'll just move back to the slides. And so the motion before you folks is that the 2020/2021 budget be adopted as presented, as recommended by the Board of Directors. So can I get a mover for that motion?
Hey, I just had a question before that.
So is it about the presentations?
It's about Dip's presentation you just gave. Yeah.
Once moved and seconded, I'll go to you for a question on it.
I can move.
Okay. Is there a seconder?
I can second.
Sorry, and can I get folks to say their full names for me?
Abby Gertson, I can second.
Thank you. Okay, Dip, normally I would go back to you, but you just gave a presentation, so I'll go over to Tom, and then we'll open it up. If you would like to speak to this presentation, please put an X in the chat. So Tom, go ahead.
Hey, Dip, I just had a question in regards to how the UVSS is auditing the advocacy groups and clubs that are getting funding from the school. Some of these groups are getting well over $100,000 a year to operate. And I'm just wondering how those budgets are approved and what deems them necessary to be receiving such large amounts of funding.
Pass it over to Dip.
Okay. So any funding that any club receives or any advocacy group receives is a direct result of a referendum. And those referendums have been, as you've seen, quite rigorous in their process. And that's how any fee is established by the UVSS. One thing to note is that the UVSS does not get involved within the internal workings of those groups. However, we are fiscally responsible for them, meaning any fund any kind of budgetary requirements that they have or any kind of financial things that they have is audited as a part of the UVSS audits as well.
So how is it then that
Wait,
every
hold
group?
on. That's the question. I have to let other people go first, and then I can go back to you for another question if you need. Is there anybody else who would like to speak to that?
Yeah, I can, sorry. So I'm the person in charge of approving most of the expenditures, or one of them. I can give you some background that, for example, clubs only received $130 in funding for all of the semester. So that's not exactly like each club. So it's not like a massive sum of money. We're also abiding by financial best practice. And so to that extent, there's no alcohol. We're also subject to all the COVID regulations. If the events are happening on campus, the advocacy groups have their own audit system, and but we check every expenditure that's made to make sure that it's valid and it's good use of money.
Okay. I have nobody else on the speakers list. Tom, you can ask a final question if you'd like.
Yeah, so my question is then like how these groups all managed to go over budget last year, especially when we were throughout the COVID year, spending should have been way below what was budgeted as they weren't fully operational. I just don't understand how these groups, these advocacy groups, were allowed to go way over budget.
I'm not sure as to which advocacy group you are referring to. However, as I said,
the CFUV, the community garden, constituency groups, course unions, Daniel Jacobs, daycare, food bank, sub expansion, capital acquisition fund, the international bursary, the Martlet, Native Students Union, Ombuds Person, Anti-Violence Project, UVSP, VIP, the VIPERG, the Gender Empowerment Center, WUSEC.
So Tom, can you point to where you're looking at for us?
I am at the global 20 final 20, what is this? The global final budget with audit 2020, 2021, 2020 to 2021 UVSS global budget.
Okay.
Okay, I can see where the confusion arises from. What you are looking at is the amount that was given to them or assigned to them. They are cost centers, meaning that's how much money they received in total. That's not that they were allowed to overextend. That's the money that they receive or should receive according to the fee established through referendum.
And so how come they received more than they were budgeted for though?
They did not.
They did, because the budget for CFUV, for example, is $195,979,000, and audited year end is $203,828.
Let's be the final back and forth here.
Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So that is their operating fund. As I said, we facilitate their financials, but we do not engage in their internal affairs. They are separately incorporated levy groups, meaning they even have a separate business altogether. So we are not responsible for their financial efforts, and that does not get accounted into our overall bottom line at all.
Okay. There's nobody else on the speakers list. So I am going to go to a vote. If we can bring up the poll for the motion to adopt the 2020-2021 budget. Oh, I didn't type it out right. I'm sorry.
This is one of the questions that I actually did pre-write, so
good.
It looks like it makes more sense to folks, and that's why.
So I'll go for another 30 seconds. Okay. So that passes. So the budget has been adopted. We'll now move on to our next resolution, which is be resolved the 2019/2020 audited financial statements be received. Can I get a mover for that motion? Please unmute yourself and state your full name.
It's Q Rojas, I move.
Thank you.
Nigel Bisnar, I second.
Thank you, Nigel. All right. If anybody would like to speak on this resolution, please put an X in the chat. I'm not seeing anybody wanting to speak to this resolution, so let's go to a vote. Another 30 seconds. Okay, ending the poll. And so the audited financial statements were received. And that's the end of that motion. Okay. I think we're getting close to the end here. Prize time.
We certainly are. We're going to do this prize for the zero waste kit, then do the board of directors reports and announcements, give away the last two, and then it's a question period for folks that are interested in asking some questions. So prize time, zero waste kit. This bad boy right here. Steph, please do your magic and do a shuffle of all the folks that sent in that form. I know that a lot of folks actually left, so hopefully the person that is drawn is still here. Let's see. Just waiting for Steph. Thanks for sticking around, folks. This is it's a long one. Just waiting for Steph. This kit is really nice. I actually wish that I could win it, but I can't. All right. We have our winner for the zero waste kit, Yasmin Evans. Are you still in the meeting? If so, please send me a message or just pop in and say hello, unmute yourself. I'll give you a moment or so to do so. Yasmin Evans. I hope you're there, Yasmin, because this is a great prize. I'm not seeing Yasmin, so Steph, are you able to do another round of guessing or round of randomization? Thank you so much. Well, I don't know how to pronounce this person's name, so I'm just going to type it into the chat. I don't want to. Keefan Lee, is that how I pronounce your name? Congrats if you're here. Send me a message or say hello in the meeting. That would be lovely.
Hello.
Hi. Is this here?
I'm here. How would I get the prize?
We'll make sure that we get it to you because you filled out the form, so we'll have your email and we'll get in touch with you. But congrats. I'm glad you're here because you won.
Thank you.
Oh,
okay, my email.
yeah. Just send it to myself or Steph.
Do you have my email now?
I do have it. Thanks.
Perfect,
I'll send
thanks.
it right now. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for bearing with us during this. It's a bit awkward and confusing, but do you mind just actually I just muted you. I'm sorry. Okay. Moving on, we've got board of directors reports and announcements. This is something that we get to do at every AGM so that folks can kind of lean in and see what we've been up to. And we're going to bring out an iPad after this. So I'll actually turn off my screen sharing. And then I can go first. You've heard a lot from me so far, but now I'm going to actually tell you about the work that I've been up to so far in this board term. So when we began our term, there was a lot of uncertainty in terms of what this year was going to look like. We campaigned for our positions online and completed our training and orientation online, but we were advised to go back in person for September. So we got to work. In my position as the Director of Outreach and University Relations, I play a lot of different roles. University Relations being one, being the spokesperson of the UVSS, heading a lot of outreach initiatives, and then being one of the leaders on the board. So part of my duties are to advocate on behalf of students to university administration on issues that students are passionate about, as well as issues that just come up throughout the year. So over the summer and fall, I did a lot of work has been done about lobbying and working with UVic to find affordable and safe housing solutions for students. Those conversations are still happening between myself, UVic administration, and the campaigns director, Robin. Additionally, I spent a lot of time with other UVSS board members, as well as folks from the SSD, the Society for Students with Disability, to advocate for the university to adopt hybrid learning options for UVic students. This is part of the Access for All campaign, that I'm gonna just copy that link for that one and put it in the chat if folks are interested in learning more. I also spent time speaking on behalf of the UVSS to provincial health officers about the post-secondary return to campus plan, and brought those same concerns to UVic administrators regarding safety and well-being of students coming back to campus during the pandemic. We also worked with the leadership to giving department at UVic, and where we were able to carry on the work of last year's board. We set up a bursary at UVic called the UVSS BIPOC Public Interest Research Award. There's a lot of details on that there will be details on that on the website soon. It's set to launch in fall of 2022. I also sit on and chair many university committees where I advocate on behalf of students for things like affordability, accessibility, and equity. Another part of my job is to act as the spokesperson of the UVSS and be the point person for social media outreach and communications oftentimes. We were heavily involved this year in various UVic orientation initiatives. In the summer, I personally did a lot of media interviews talking about the issues that I mentioned above. We also did a lot of tabling and gave out a lot of swag during campus kickoff and clubs and course union days, which was awesome. We also got onto TikTok this year, which is also silly and fun. And then finally, the last part of my work, last but not least, is internal, relating to the governance of the UVSS and our UVSS board. So I chair our meetings, and I work to make our meetings as accessible, relaxed, and engaging as I can. I also ensure that our board of directors policy is updated and reflective of the environment that we want to foster. We're actually in the final stages of an equity, diversity, and inclusion audit of the UVSS board that was started by last year's board. And I'm looking forward to implementing the changes brought forth by that audit into our policy and board culture. And then finally, the lead directors and I are actively engaging to find ways to make the UVSS more equitable in terms of workload, mental wellness and well-being, organizational structure, and accessibility. And that's a fun prospect to think about. There's always a lot going on. It's been rewarding so far. And thanks for listening to my report. There's no specific order we need to go in. One of the other leads, jump in.
Sweet. Hi, everyone. My name is Q. Pronouns are they and them. I am your director of events. The biggest thing that's always on the directors of events portfolio is campus kickoff. So got to do pancake breakfast, movie in the quad, vendor fair, and bands on the roof. And as soon as you get in the position, you just start planning because it takes the entire summer to do. By like the end of September, after catching up on all the other things, we are launching our book club, which is really exciting. So in November, on the 16th and 18th, it's our first meeting all together. So come by that. I've also, my passion project this year was starting up a hot lunch program. Heard a lot of stuff about food insecurity from various different groups across campus. It affects many students for various different reasons, including like systemic reasons and things exacerbated by the pandemic. So our first event is actually tomorrow in collaboration with Divest Fest. So you can catch us in NPR from 12 to 2. So the Michelle Pajot room, sorry, in the Student Union building. And there'll be some music playing and some pumpkin painting. And you can get a free hot meal. And it's veggie, vegan chili, and cornbread. I also kind of extend past the typical events portfolio. So I'm a bit more advocacy based. That was my intention for this year. So I got to take part in facilitating an anti-oppression training workshop in collaboration with the Office of Student Life, which was like a workshop for the engaged leaders that have just been introduced this year. I also got to work with Robin and the Shift campaign, so helping launch the Anti-Asian Racism Survey on campus, which we are looking at the data right now. So hopefully soon we can get you some of those results of the student experience, like the Asian student experience on campus. And I am also very lucky to sit as the UVSS representative on the Society for Students with Disabilities Access for All campaign working group, which Marin shared in the chat earlier. They're working towards hybrid accessible options at UVic, and I'm very happy to sit on it. It's super intersectional and very important, and especially important right now. I also sit on a couple of committees out of choice. And so a couple of UVic ones, the most substantial ones is a personnel committee, which I ex officio, I sit on that anyways in my position. I got to choose to sit on a couple of hiring committees. As Dip was saying, there's been lots of hiring this year. I also sit on EQHR's policy advisory committee, and we're working on discrimination and harassment policy, and food bank and free store committee. I also got to work with the One Card office on a more trans inclusive One Card policy. So that was really exciting and rewarding and special for me personally. Some different collaborations and relationships that we've been working on. So the director of events and also each year's board gets to decide what kinds of things they're getting involved with and which partnerships they're making across campus in certain capacities. And so I took it upon myself to build a working relationship with the Vikes athletics team. They're really great. I got to sit on the Thunderfest committee this year. I've been just voted in actually as on the Vikes Nation Advisory Committee, which will start meeting in November. And these are really great from advocacy point of view. And I've already started initiating some conversations on inclusivity for BIPOC, Two-Spirit, LGBTQIA+, and disabled students in partnership with SSD and other advocacy groups and marginalized students. And also I get to sit on CFUV, the campus radios board. So I'm very excited. Their AGM's next week on Wednesday. And I get to do lots of other student advocacy in my position, which I'm very lucky to do and have been doing. As for what's in the works right now, COVID has stifled events, of course, which we had a bit more planned, but we get to see how those protocols unfold in the next couple of months. But we have lots of collaborations in the works, and then an example of a couple of like student-led initiatives that we've supported, where was the meal exchange approached us, and we got to do an event with well, it was mostly the food bank. I'm not going to take credit for that, but initiating some of those first conversations with meal exchange. Vikes Kick Cancer, which was so awesome. It just happened this past week. And other things that will come up very soon. Thanks.
I can go next. So my name is Robin. I'm your Director of Campaigns and Community Relations, and my pronouns are she, her, and they, them. We've had a really busy summer and start of the school year. It's been really incredible having so much volunteer engagement, as well as support from the campaign's portfolios, directors at large, Kritika and Haley, and the UVSS staff and board members. Right off the bat, after the election, the campaign's portfolio began planning how to execute our goals and fulfill the mandate that I was elected on, which happened through creating a strategic plan and budget. This was a really huge learning curve for me, and I was really grateful for all the support that the UVSS staff and volunteers and board members gave. So that planning is now for campaigns really in action now. So I'll tell you all a little bit about the campaigns that we have going on right now. So the first one I'll talk about is Let's Get Consensual. So this is our sexualized violence prevention campaign that's really aims to dismantle sexualized violence on our campus. We co-ran Sexualized Violence Awareness Week in September. So we partnered with Equity and Human Rights, the Office of Student Life, and the Anti-Violence Project, along with many other, including Vikes. And we decided our main theme, let's talk about boundaries. So creating, recognizing, and celebrating boundaries, which feels extremely relevant and important, especially as we return to campus after COVID, during COVID. This included a bunch of different workshops and a keynote speaker. This was a huge collaboration between many different people, and I'm grateful to different directors at large, specifically Effie and Kritika and Haley, who helped to really table and talk to UVic students about dismantling sexualized violence on our campus. So that was a really interactive week where we got to have a lot of really meaningful conversations with students. Another project that the campaign's portfolio has been taking on this fall is organizing safer sex supplies and menstrual supplies, and we actually just got those in the UVSS gender neutral bathrooms. So that happened today, which was really exciting. So if you're in the sub, go check out the main floor gender neutral bathrooms, and there's condoms, lubes, elements of consent stickers, there's internal condoms, as well as pads and tampons. So we also ran the federal election and student voter engagement campaign. As most of you may know, we had a snap election at the end of September. So that was a bit of a surprise, and we partnered with the incredible youth-run group called Shake Up the Establishment to provide nonpartisan voter information and accessible resources and research to students. This partnership was really important to me because Shake Up the Establishment is a group that really values being nonpartisan and does really great research that is nonpartisan. So this year Elections Canada also decided not to have on-campus voting stations. So we also did some advocacy against that decision alongside many other student societies. We also have our Rethink Your Mental Health campaign. And so Rethink Your Mental Health works to create a university culture in which individuals feel safe seeking support from counseling and peers, as well as just making on-campus resources more accessible and make students aware of them. So the really big project that we've been doing this year is actually running workshops called Rethink Your Mental Health Toolkit. So the goal of those workshops are really just to give students the tools in their toolkit to help handle different situations. So this was a collaboration between the the Peer Support Center, to create monthly workshops on topics that were chosen by students. So far, we've had workshops on how to create boundaries, how to support a friend who's dealing with mental illness, and that was one that Critica, one of the campaign's directors at large, facilitated and organized, which was super incredible. And our next workshop's coming up. There's one coming up I think on November 19th, and it's on overcoming imposter syndrome. So if you're interested in that, then that's going to be in the Sub Upper Lounge, December 19th at 3 p.m. We also have the Safer Use campaign. So this is a campaign that's partnered with the Student Wellness Center, and it is one that is focused on delivering judgment-free training and workshops on alcohol and drug use, and how and harm reduction, and how different, so that one, a big thing is naloxone training. So naloxone training runs every month, and it's been really well attended, with nearly 100 people already trained only in September and October. And we have another naloxone training coming up on Wednesday, November 17th. We're also partnering with Student Wellness Center to get the Harm Reduction Center up and running. The Harm Reduction Center provides a variety of services, including naloxone kits, internal and external condoms, lube, safer smoking supplies, safer injection supplies, sharps disposal containers, and information on community resources. So that's in the basement of the Sub. One of our really extremely popular campaigns that has a lot of student engagement is called Divest UVic. So Divest UVic's aims have remained consistent throughout nearly a decade of campaigning, or it was a club before turning into a campaign. And so the goals of Divest UVic is to lobby the university to fully divest from fossil fuels, and then to really take a stronger, to address the climate crisis in an effective way. And so for that campaign, myself and others, other students and Divest members wrote an op-ed that was published in the National Observer about universities and fossil fuel investments. We organized a very last-minute climate strike walkout in September that actually went really well, considering how quickly we organized it. We also have a huge event coming up tomorrow that's in partnership with Q and Events Portfolio, where we'll have a hot lunch, live music, and we will talk about climate justice. Everyone is welcome. You can come anytime between 12 and 2 in the Michelle Pujol room. And yeah, this campaign is really incredible because it really relies on decentralized leadership and the passion and organizing of all the Divest members, which is really special. Another campaign is Rent with Rights. So Rent with Rights works to share vital information about tenancy rights, as well as to fight for students when it comes to housing affordability, availability, safety, and security. This year, I've been especially focused on reducing housing barriers in local municipalities, such as the Oak Bay 3-person occupancy limit. We've had so many, the housing crisis in Victoria has been just very pronounced this year because of COVID and return to campus and multiple cohorts, and students facing a lot of discrimination in the housing, like with landlords and things like that. And so it's been like a huge thing for students this year especially, but every year. And so focusing on really tangible things that could make a difference has been something that we have been focusing on. I've written numerous letters to Oak Bay Council and connected with local housing organizations and different housing clubs and advocacy groups, as well as multiple students. Myself and Maren have had many meetings with the UVic Office of Student Affairs to discuss housing issues and to share student concerns and actions that UVic could take. And we've also partnered with law students to get tenancy rights FAQ put together. And so this has been created, and we're going to try and make it as accessible as possible so that students can have access to that and know what their rights are as renters. Yeah, and that also included like a fair bit of media over the summer to just really try and talk about different student experiences that students have been facing trying to find housing. And yeah. Another campaign is Make Transit Work. And so this summer and fall, I've been the non-voting seat representative on the Victoria Regional Transit Commission. So this means I attend the board meetings and speak on behalf of students at these meetings. So over the summer, most of the advocacy did was around student concerns regarding COVID and masks on buses. And then lately, I've had many students reaching out to me about the number of pass-ups, so buses that are full just going past them, and the lack of bus routes to places like the West Shore or Langford area. And so that's really what I'm focusing on at the moment for transit, is trying to increase the effectiveness of those services. And then we have our new campaign, Shift Our Campus, which is working to develop a wider community consciousness of how discrimination impacts and shapes student lives at UVic. As Q mentioned, one of the big things we have going on right now is the Anti-Asian Racism Survey. And so we haven't dug into those results yet, as that survey just recently closed. So that's something we're really going to be working on moving forward. Yeah, and then the other part of my portfolio is community relations. And so one of the main things, and I'll just keep this brief because I've been talking for a long time, is doing a BC budget brief with the Alliance of BC Students and with the UBC Alma Mater Societies, the UBC Student Society. And we did a brief together in collaboration, requesting more funding for mental health, specifically culturally relevant supports and peer-led supports, as well as requesting money towards Indigenous language revitalization programs and sexualized violence prevention programs on campus. Yeah, I'll leave it there. I have more things written down, but I don't want to take up too much more space in this meeting. So yeah, I'll leave that there. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, folks. I can keep mine really brief if that's okay. So Student Affairs helps, sorry, hi, my name is Marielle, I use your pronouns. I'm the Student Affairs Director. My portfolio helps many students on campus, like their groups with logistics and allocating funding. I also through clubs and course union days, September 15th and 16th. You may remember like the little fair that happened outside the sub for the first time ever on the quad. We're hosting it again, January 19th and 20th. Please come and check out many new clubs. We have everything from archery to Bitcoin lovers to support groups for difficult engineering classes. So do swing by. This semester, we have 143 active clubs and 25 course unions and 5 professional development unions, all of which we've distributed around $56,000 in base funding. And 20, yeah, it's breaking down to like base funding and then special projects, but I won't get into that. Most of my work is admin, just making sure that, you know, club leaders that spent money on events get that money reimbursed. I help set up new clubs, troubleshoot their insurance, troubleshoot room bookings and catering requests. And then in addition to that, I also support advocacy and affiliated groups. So we have staff coordinators as well as volunteer board representatives. And so I try to balance it between small daily achievable tasks like supporting someone with a social media for an event or navigating interpersonal relationships with larger system approaches. So looking at what projects, how our projects and initiatives are value-centered and how to build up capacity, and then how to support wellness for the folks that are doing all of the advocacy work. As you can see and hear from everyone else, it takes a lot of heart, brain, and community work to pull off all of these events. And so my job is to support folks in feeling well, happy, and safe enough to engage courageously. I also received quite a bit of disclosures just from students at large. So a good amount of my daily tasks are also slightly confidential. I, like all of us leads, I'm on many different hiring committees. I can mention one that I'd love your feedback on is the Vice President Academic Provost. It's one of the key leadership positions on UVic, and they're having a series of town halls next week. I can put down the link below. And then in addition to that, I also really enjoy supporting our food bank in Freester. And so, for example, I helped get free delivery service from TELUS to get our supplies into the building. And there are many other future partnerships and ideas in the works. These are just some of them. Thanks for coming.
All right, are there any other directors who would like to give a report?
Yes, I do have a report.
Great.
Hi, thanks everybody for being here and just enduring this long period. It's really great to have everybody here. But my name is Josh. I'm the Director of International Student Relations. I head the International Student Relations Committee and sit on the Peer Support Center Committee. The Director of International Student Relations is the primary liaison between international students and the UVSS and works to help guide students and advocate for international supports. So I'm lucky to have Dal Shopaparveen working hard with me on this team, and we work very closely with the global community and International Center for Students, previously known as ISS, International Student Services. Tricia, Cecilia, and Teresa are lovely and operate both areas. But the International Student Relations Committee has stayed busy this fall term to support international students, as this term has been all about navigating back to in-person classes and continuing to manage the COVID-19 situation. So this year we have been heavily assisting and regularly updating international students and helping guide them through the shifting COVID-19 protocols, vaccination mandate, travel, housing crisis, financial concerns, along with all other complications that have been arising from the pandemic. For students. So many international students did not get the chance, unfortunately, to be present here on campus this fall. So ISR has been working with the SSD's Access for All campaign, which has been lobbying UVic to offer more courses in a high flex model, meaning that the course offers both in-class and online sessions, so to bring about a more equitable state of education at UVic, supporting folks with disabilities and international students who cannot afford to come to campus during this time or in the future. And the ISR portfolio has also been engaged in culturally competent sexual violence prevention and mental health research to stimulate conversation around these topics within the UVSS and to improve the current SVP curriculum along with mental health supports for international students, which both of those have been really important to the ISS International Student Relations team. But we have also been in conversation with UBC and Camosun College's student societies regarding the issue of international student tuition across BC being drastically hiked. BC has historically been an international student hub, but with less provincial funding, colleges and universities have decided to raise their tuition fees for both domestic and international students accordingly. But the further problem with this is that there's a 2% cap on tuition increases for domestic students, while international student tuition at times has increased by almost 50% without having a hike cap to make up for this revenue loss. And we aim to continue discussing inter-school provincial lobbying regarding increasing post-secondary provincial operating grants, predictability measures for international students via tuition limit policy, and making sure that international students are heard during the review of post-secondary funding. But within the scope of UVic itself, International Student Relations has been collecting student testaments, asking the university to freeze tuition hikes this next year, coming out of the pandemic, and then placing a 2% hike cap the following 2 years to find alternative financial options rather than placing heavy financial burdens on the back of international students. And you can find the form to submit a testament on the UVSS website or scan the QR code in the UVSS offices. Just 1 second, I'm going to send the link to Marin, who can then put the link to the testament submission to you all. But you can also find the QR code for that in our offices right here across from the Munchie Bar. And also in the offices here across from the Munchie Bar, you can find the petition that International Student Relations and the Graduate Student Society have been collaborating on regarding the lowering of the international MSP fee, which was also doubled this last year. This is a physically signed petition, and it will be submitted to the Legislative Assembly in February. And on the note of international representation, the UVSS understands the importance of making sure international voices are heard and that these students are supported fully. So it is also a priority of the ISR team to work with the UVSS to make Director of International Student Relations the 6th lead director and make it into a half-time paid position to fit the work hour restriction of the Canadian study visa as students, and because the role contains more work than simply a volunteer position. So the next international representative should ideally be paid for the important work that this area of the UVSS does. And so the ISR team looks forward to continuing its advocacy and is here for the students. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please reach out to us anytime via social media, swing by offices, or my email, which is internationalrep@uvss.ca. And we'll be around.
Okay, are there any other directors who would like to give a report? Great, seeing none, I think we're on to the question period, if I'm correct. Oh, never mind, prize time, take it back.
Couple more prizes, and then folks are free to head out if they so desire. First, we have a $50 gift card to Tootie, which is a free food and food delivery. Sorry, my brain is a little mushy. Food delivery company. It's like Skip the Dishes, but only for local. So Steph, please do your magic 1 second to last time. Next, we're drawing for an iPad. Congratulations, this was very fast, to Karen Hawes, who has won a gift card to Tootie. Karen, are you still in this meeting?
Yay, yes. Yeah, I'm still here, but I don't live locally, so I'm not sure how I can use that.
Does Tootie just operate in Victoria? I don't know. Or is it like, does anyone know? Okay.
Just Victoria.
Greater Victoria only.
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry, Karen.
Have any friends in Victoria who could pay you for it?
Yeah, yeah, you can give it as a gift or something.
Gee, I
Oh,
don't know.
just
Maybe.
sorry. They're Vancouver, Victoria, Kelowna, Kamloops, Nanaimo, Chilliwack, Maple Ridge, Squamish, and more.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, maybe I'll accept the prize and then I'll give it to a friend that I have that lives in Kamloops.
Perfect. That sounds like a great solution. Thanks, Karen. Sorry about that.
Thanks.
All right. Moving on to the last prize of the night. Our iPad 9. Steph, please do your magic. We'll find our final person. Drum roll, drum roll, drum roll. The moment you may have all been waiting for. Anxiously waiting. And then after this, folks, it's just a question period, and then we're all done. So you're free to go. The winner is, I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher your name probably, but it's Oluwatoni David. Congratulations, you have won an iPad. Are you here?
Hi, I'm here.
Hey, that is a resounding yes. Congratulations.
I'm sorry. Sorry, how do I claim it?
I believe that we have your email, so we'll get in touch with you to figure out how you can get this bad boy in your hands.
Okay, so I send my email?
Sure, you can send it to me just to be sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, folks, we're into question period. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you so much for coming, for those folks who have come. This has been a long evening, but some worthwhile discussion has been had. And if you want to ask questions, stick around. If not, head out.
Okay, so the agenda has a very maximum hard stop of 30 minutes in the question period. If you would like to ask a question, please put an X in the chat. I'll ask again. Does anybody want to ask a question to any of the directors? Please put an X in the chat. Dana.
Hi, everyone. Sorry to keep you longer. I just have a few questions. The first one is, what happened with the MSP for international students petition? The second question is there a possibility to have your awesome events like the ones tomorrow on a Saturday or a Sunday for people who work during school days? And the third question, I can't remember. So just those two questions.
Well, I can go ahead and take that first one. The international MSP fee was doubled the last year. As for the petition, we have that right here in the offices, right here in the Student Union building, right across from the Munchie Bar. And so we have that just right up in center in the main table with all of the promotional stuff. Also, if you go to the UVSS info booth, which is if you go into the main doors of the sub, you can they have a copy of it, so you should be able to request a copy of it and sign it physically there.
Hi, thanks for asking that question. That's a very good point. There's nothing stopping us from holding it on the weekends. Very often the events are for like student engagement, kind of like when they're on campus and like can come by and stop by anytime while they're here. And so that was one factor. Also, because of COVID, the sub wasn't open on the weekends. We're still not open on Sundays. And then I think Saturdays are opening up. So yeah, there's lots of different ways that we could hold actually things online or on the weekend and make them a bit more accessible. And you can definitely reach out or come to events committee too, and we can plan it together.
Awesome. And one last question, if I'm allowed.
I have one other person to ask you a question, then I'll come back to you. How about that?
That sounds good. Okay.
Shelby, you can go ahead.
Hi, I had a question for Robin.
Go ahead.
I think earlier you were saying that you were working with BC Transit in regards to things that students have been asking for. And I was just wondering if there were any gains made in that regard.
Thanks for your question, Shelby. So one thing that could, I guess, be seen as a gain is that there's the creation of a student advisory committee. And so that was created after a couple of years of student advocacy around trying to get a voting seat. But that the voting seat didn't get, sorry, my words after such a long meeting, but didn't go through, basically got turned down by the Victoria Regional Transit Commission. And so instead they decided to give us a student transit advisory committee. And so that's a committee where we can sit with BC Transit staff, as well as other student societies, so the CMOSN and the Graduate Student Society of UVic, as well as Royal Roads is invited to that one as well. But we haven't had any, it's slow going. There's a lot of bureaucracy. And so really lobbying them on transit issues has been definitely very difficult, for sure. I don't know if that answers your question. If you have anything more specific, then I can definitely, try and answer.
No, thank you for your answer.
Yeah, of course.
All right, Dana, back to you.
Question for Marie. Is it Maril or Marie?
It's Marielle, but go ahead.
Marielle. Question for Marielle. You posted a link for provost for webinars. Can you explain what that is again? I missed what you said about them.
Sure, absolutely. So this is a committee for one of the like an incoming UVic exec, and so they're interviewing 3 potential people, and they're just town halls to get basically feedback on UVic's leadership for the next, I think their contract is around 5 years, so pretty important decision. If you'd like to check it out, there are 3 different time slots in that link.
And are they the same webinars, like repeated, or is it everyone is different?
So each one has a different candidate.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I'm going to go over to the announcements. Are there any announcements for the folks left? Okay. With that, we'll move to motion to adjourn. So at the end of our agenda, can I get a mover
Rojas move.
and a seconder?
I move Dan and Nab.
Great. Well, we'll make it. I'm going to say we don't actually need to make this official. There's nothing else on the agenda. I'm not going to make you folks vote. Thanks, everybody. That is the end of this meeting. Have a great night.
Thank you for participating in student governance and in the UVSS. We really appreciate it. Take care, folks.